ya lo chama niyo. Huye de timole barro y mira bona cuente mío tú. Oh, wimo, dólar lo guajete. Al amor elefa.
Y a mi le.
Lleva gran canite.
Y a mi le. Pongo H y de mi caramba y a mi le
Llegó a Dineu. Llegó a Dineu, a Diñale como llegó Donorefa. Arribo yo a Dineu, a Diñale como ti.
llegó a Dineu. Llegó a Dineu, ahí ya llegó, si llegó todo de paz. Arribo yo a Dineu, ahí ya llegó, sí.
Llegó como Arideu, se cure galaito, Arideu, Adiñale como me llegó Donorefa. Arribo yo Arideu, Adiñale como ti.
Llegó a Dineu.
Orille yo.
Llegó a Dineu, ahí ya llegó, si llegó todo de paz. Ahí voy yo a Dineu, ahí ya llegó.
Pájaro, y te
Pájaro, caca,
pájaro,
y de pájaro, caca,
pájaro,
y de pájaro, caca,
pájaro,
y de pájaro, caca,
pájaro.
y de pájaro, caca.
Uchinchegi guaba, obo te casire con lo para mí lo yugo.
Oh, you bad. Oh, you bad. Uchinche, otala balaco. Oh, you black up.
Uchinchegi guapo, obo te casire con lo para mí lo yugo.
Oh, you bad. Oh, you bad. Uchinche, otala balaco. Oh, you black up.
Uchinchegi guapo, cololondi. Uchinchegi guapo, igucole. Uchinchegi guapo, obo te casire con lo para mí lo yugo.
Oh, you bad. Oh, you bad. Otala balaco. Oh, you bad.
Agete ife otunguailege, agete ife otunguailege, ona otunguaile,
A que te ile o tu baile.
ona otunguaile,
A que te ile o tu baile.
ona otunguaile.
A que te ile o tu baile.
Genio mu,
Opa ichi olongo.
genio mu,
Opa ichi olongo.
tani mawaye golongo venga,
Ichi olongo.
tani mawaye golongo venga.
Ichi olongo.
Inigua, iyalote, iyalote.
Iriwa, iyalote, iriwa, iyalote, iyalote.
Iniguago, iyalote. Iriwa,
iyalote, iyalote.
Toro garupu yeye, toro garupu amala, toro bambi yeye,
Omo,
Toro papi oh, toro papi oh, toro papi oh. Llega, llega la ega, apea la ega, apea la ega, oíle que le poder, oíle que le poder, oíle que le poder, ay 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 como malo de, oíle que le poder, ay 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 como malo de, a la mopille moro ya lo debo pillé, ya lo debo pillé, ya lo debo pillé, ya lo debo pillé, ya lo debo.
All right. Peace. Welcome everyone. To Community at Night. Anu Community at Night. This is Chief Yuya speaking, and as always, I want to welcome you all. I see some familiar faces already in the chat room. So welcome everyone. You know I do my thing when I go through all of them. I'll do that a little bit later, but and I see some people called in already as well on Blog Talk Radio. So welcome everyone. You know, I hope or I will that today was a productive one for you all, that you were able to do some things that just got you a little bit closer, even if just a little, not a lot, but a little bit closer to your destination. You know, pacing and planning is key. Pacing and planning. It's a marathon. But yeah, give thanks, for all of you first time listeners and quote unquote watchers. And for those of you who are consistently riding with this experience, I want to welcome you and thank you for being here. Tonight, we're going to be speaking about depression, anxiety, and PTSD. You know, I know it's maybe not the the most uplifting or soothing topic to speak about, but you know, it needs to be spoken about on this Wednesday. All right. So all the topics that are delivered, you know, timely. It's a reason. There's an order to them, and even there's an order or a spirit of particular days that make for certain topics. It makes for more cultivating and more productive discussion surrounding certain things. So, you know, that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, or tonight, I should say, I guess. You know, the thing is, like I told you, my work day kind of really officially starts around 10 p.m., even though I work all through the day. But so for me, it's still like day, you know, even though it's night out in a way. But yeah, so we're going to be getting to that. But before we do that, I did promise that I would cover some of the pieces that we spoke about yesterday. And yesterday's segment, you know, there was a lot of questions that came forth, and I saw that after the show, which was good. You guys were kind of going back and forth a bit in the YouTube comment section and just sharing your different perspectives. And I think there was even Spirit Driven had offered some solution. I know Sister Sequoia, you had presented a question asked at you as well, Sister Michelle. I'm scanning through as I'm talking, so I'll have to look through and see for all the ones that are there. But you know, I did say I would address those, so I'm going to take a look at them real quick, and then I'll move into, you know, what we're talking about. And feel free, if new questions came up, whatever, just either call in. The number is 515-605-9862, or put it in the chat room, and I'll try to hopefully won't get lost in all of the niceties, you know, because you guys like peace, this one, peace that one, you know, so hopefully stuff won't get lost. But if not, you can always call in either one. And, you know, usually I try to take that break around the 45-minute to an hour mark. And then during that time is when I'll scan whatever's in the chat room. So hopefully I'll catch it if you throw something in there. But yeah, in any event, so I'm gonna go through these questions, and like I said yesterday, or yesterday was a daytime session. We were having a discussion around the idea of moving amongst vultures, moving within a room of vultures and moving within a space where you're surrounded by those who may have ill intent, and not necessarily from a personal perspective, but just perhaps maybe your presence or your objectives may coincide with what it is that they want. And anytime, we defined it yesterday, the enemy is really one whose objectives could bring you hurt or harm. And they can still be an enemy, whether they, sometimes they don't know that it brings you harm or they don't care. And of course, in a callous society such as the one that many of us are living in, a lot of times the latter is the reality. They just don't care. All right. So I'm going to begin with Sister Michelle's question, because that seems to be on top of the comment section. So I'm going to start there. I'm just going through the comments from the video because, like I did promise, if you put some of the questions in there, I'll try to glance back to them and cover them. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm commenting on the Room Full of Vultures, show, and then we're going to go into this one. So Michelle said, this has been a hard show to hear on many levels. I know you will expand on this next show. I would like to ask, why is it that I cannot bring myself to be more polished and give out fake compliments, etc.? Is it ego? Well, okay, to answer that, I said that giving out fake compliments is not necessarily synonymous or a sign of being polished. The idea of being polite, oftentimes, not every time, because I'm not a antagonist against the concept of politeness. I actually enjoy politeness. I enjoy refinement. I enjoy elegance, but oftentimes, unbalanced, it's a mask for insincerity. Politeness. Like, we have a phrase in the States a lot of times when we say Southern, that good old Southern hospitality. And yeah, there is a reality to that. But if any of you have ever been in the Southern states for an extended period of time, you see that a lot of times that Southern hospitality is a cover for something else, more insidious. So politeness is not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily coincide with being phony. But I'll give you this, Sister Michelle, to kind of reflect on. You oftentimes are overly apologetic, and you're a brilliant woman. So you're overly apologetic at times when you probably know you didn't do anything wrong. Now compare that to the idea of politeness, or the idea of again, using soothing and pacifying and even handling methods to affect a certain outcome. Okay, so it's very similar in that sense. So, you got to look beyond just the idea of, okay, a fake compliment. It's much bigger than that, which is, ultimately the etc. that you mentioned in that, right? So I don't really want to answer that just yet. I want you to think about, compare that idea of maybe being overly apologetic, and then think about the question again. If you really are not polished as you think you might be, or might not be, I should say. All right. So, we got plenty of time. You can think about it, come back to it, and I'll get into it. All right. So I'm just scanning through. All right, I'll go right to where I see questions. I know Sequoia had one in there somewhere. Okay, here it is. Peace. I just wanted to retype my question here. How do we find a balance between speaking from our emotional perceptions and speaking from a place of truth? Okay. So I see that you and Spirit Driven kind of went back and forth a little bit, and I guess the sisters worked it out. Sister's gonna work it out in a sense. But I'll just add this. All right. And I don't want to undermine any work that you two have done or anything like that. I didn't read, well, and actually I did read her answers. I saw them yesterday or last night, in fact. So I don't want to undermine anything that you two came up with or anything that was said. But I'll just add this. When you say that, how do we find a balance between speaking from our emotional perception and speaking from a place of truth, right? Well, you kind of have to think about that. So essentially, you're saying speaking from my emotional perception may not necessarily be the truth because I'm trying to balance my emotions, what I'm feeling, between what's actually true. Well, that's not really. Those are not the complements to one another. You know, um, if what you're feeling is not the truth, then you shouldn't be speaking on it as if it is the truth. There's a difference between saying, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and really looking for some clarity as to if it has validity to it or not, or just because of the intensity of the feeling, you say, well, it must be true because I feel it with my entire being. So when you say, how do we find a balance between emotional perceptions and speaking from a place of truth, what you perceive and what you um spirit driven, I do feel free to disagree. I need your permission for that. I got this. All right. So now, yeah, I'm just commenting in the chat room. Spirit driven, the illustrious cyborg. She told me I'm free to. I should feel free to disagree. Yeah. Um, I'm being polished right now. I'm being polite. Okay. Appreciate this refinement. Soak it up. Soak it up. All right. So, yeah. So, the thing is with that, you have to look at, sometimes it's not about a balance of concurrent energies or concurrent projections. Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's about sequence. So we say, okay, I'm feeling something and I know the truth at the same time. How do I balance how to present it? Well, it doesn't really work that way. You got to do things in sequence. It's a certain order to things. I may feel something, but have I also processed it with my logic? And if I haven't processed it with my logic, then I probably shouldn't really be speaking yet. You see, sometimes that's a problem. And I've shared that before. You know, some people, sometimes they go straight from gut to mouth. As soon as they feel it, they just blurt it out. And a lot of times you can lose relationships like that. You're not thinking about what you're saying. So then when someone says, "What did you just say?" You can't even repeat it. Or you change it or you say something different. So it's really about sequence, in terms of what you're speaking about, in terms of balancing. But I have to say this, that question was wrong. That's a wrong question. All right. That was a wrong question. Speaking from emotional perception and speaking from a place of truth. You should always speak from a place of truth. So there's really no question there. It would be like, and I'm not telling you what to think, but I'm just saying the question should be more like, I would suggest, how do I stop speaking solely from emotional perspective and speak from a place of truth? Or in order to speak from a place of truth. You see? So yeah, you want to think about that a little bit in terms of that. And again, it's not a question that a lot of people wouldn't say. It's, but just sometimes you have to decompile the questions a little bit, because um if we take every question at face value without looking at it, the question itself oftentimes reveals the answer or reveals the mind state that an individual is in. So sometimes, like, when people ask questions, and you guys have noticed that I may not give a direct answer a lot of times. And of course, it probably upsets people to agree. And I'm going to speak about that another time. But sometimes people don't know what they're actually asking. It's like the example I gave, I think it was yesterday, where the person made a comment to me about earning respect. And then when I asked them to define respect, they didn't know what the word respect meant. to their admission. It wasn't that they said something and I said that's not it. They just flat out was like paused and like, I really don't know what it means. And then they said, well, to me it means. And then I was like, well, to you, no. And then I said, what does it mean? And then they said, well, you tell me what it means. See, now you're being hostile because you don't want to admit you don't know what the heck you're talking about. So sometimes the question itself has to be qualified because you may be commenting on something that really doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. And you're trying to make it add up. So now you're creating a larger fairy tale. So yeah, that particular question is just no, speak from a place of truth, period. Done. That's it. If you're sharing emotions that are not true, you should only be sharing them because you desire to be corrected and fixed. You desire to share them so someone can say, okay, well, this is maybe why you're feeling this or that. So let's fix it. You see? So yeah, there's a little discrepancy there in that sense. But utilize the sequences of logic and emotion. And I've taught you all plenty of times, spirit, the thought, to emotion, to action. That's your sequence, and the action is you speaking. So your emotions should be guided by right thinking. Right thinking should be guided by a spirit that's aligned with your soul. That's the order. Okay. Spirit, and it really doesn't even start spirit. It starts with the reflection of the soul. Reflective soul, spirit, thought, emotion, action. Okay. That's really the order that things should go into. If you're not utilizing that order, I can tell you, honestly, you're probably saying something that's off or thinking something that's off. If that's not the order that you're utilizing, because remember, like you said, speaking from a place of truth. Well, the only truth that actually exists is the soul, because everything else is transitory. So if it's not coming, your emotions are not necessarily true, they're just your emotions. And your emotions that's kind of what we're going to speak about a little bit tonight anyway. Your emotions can really shape your perception of reality to the point that they create a physiological, response. It can become psychosomatic even, where your thoughts begin to create a physical response. But it doesn't mean that any of them are true. That's one of the reasons why we try to fix problems when we have a psychosomatic response, or we have a physiological response like anxiety, which we're going to talk about, because it's not necessarily based on something that's true. You see, it's based on the perception, or it's based on the fear of what may be true. And a lot of times it's an excessive fear of what may be true. You see, but I'll explain that. We'll get into it. Let me just scan real quick. I'm just looking at all the any questions. And I think spirit driven kind of answered or added in. But answered a lot of the stuff here. So yeah, I think it was just you two had questions. If I'm off, anyone could just put a comment in the chat room, let me know. But or just again call in, if I missed anybody there. And I also have I have the chat from yesterday too, but that's a little bit too much scanning. All right. So if you still have a question, I'll probably just I kept the window open from yesterday. But if you still have a question, you can just put it in the chat room. I'll see it. But yeah, so think about it from that perspective, Sister Sequoia. If you're wrong, you're wrong. And we have to be able to get to that place where we can be wrong and find out why we're wrong and how we can stop being wrong, instead of always trying to validate the wrong. Well, I feel this, a lot of people like this, but you can't tell me what to feel. No, I can't. But it doesn't mean that what you're feeling is actually credible. Because feelings can be I think I said that in the intro, right? Chief Speaks. Your feelings can be corrupted. And it's true, because, your feelings are, they don't necessarily have to be rooted in truth. Your feelings don't necessarily have to come from the soul. You can create these hollow corpless emotions or corpless thoughts. You know, you can create these disembodied thoughts or disembodied emotions or even disembodied actions, you know, where you can basically create zombies of your own thoughts, zombies of your own emotions, even zombies of your own physical moving, of your own actions. You know, things don't necessarily have to be rooted and founded by the seeds of your purpose or by the seeds of your soul. So in that situation, in that case, man, stuff can come from wherever, you know, and it feels the same way. Just like you may imagine something, whether it be in a dream, you could dream something or whatever, and it feels real, of course, right? But it doesn't necessarily come from truth. It doesn't necessarily come from the soul. It could come from a whole lot of other things. It could come from a movie you watched. It could come from parasites in your intestines, you know, which affect the way you think. It could come from a hormonal imbalance, you know, because of the water that you're drinking or the plastic shades that you have in your window, you know, can create a hormonal imbalance. I mean, there's so many different things, you know, your food, your water, even the clothes you wear, the pesticides, you know, um, the things that you do that go against the natural functioning and movement of your body organisms can create imbalances inside of you. Sometimes we use our our bodies for things that, you know, they weren't really made to be used for. You know, I'm just laughing. I'm thinking about something someone told me that they were asked to do by somebody else. I'm definitely not going to get into that. But yeah, sometimes we just overdo it with that a little bit. You know, you know, yeah, we bend and twist things a little bit too much. But all right, so yeah, I think I got those questions. And again, if I missed anything, you know, feel free to just put it in the chat, and I'll cover it. You know, I'll speak about it. But yeah, so like I said, we're speaking about depression, anxiety, and PTSD, right? PTSD, of course, is short for post traumatic stress disorder. All right, post traumatic stress disorder. All right, but you know, prior to even PTSD, we're going to just kind of cover real quick depression and anxiety. And you know, most of the time when I present an idea, subject, information to you all, I give you the opportunity to kind of understand a little bit of the thought process and where it comes from. And, you know, just understand that anything that I talk about, it always comes from some type of need that I've spotted, you know. So one of the tragedies and one of the consistent issues I find often in conscious collectives, right? It's depression, right? It's a lot of depression. And a lot of times what I've noticed is that I've recognized and spotted people who are depressed, and because they may not have sought out any kind of therapy or may not have been diagnosed properly, you know, they're unable to really see and understand that, you know, hey, there's something off here. There's something a little bit wrong. And sometimes they're using psychological models that don't really apply to them. You know, again, and I've often said this, and of course I will say it again. Um, if we look different on the outside, we're different. What was this? When should we do the rituals? Boy, don't be. Hold on, let me close this down here because it's gonna be beeping off. Wait, we were supposed to do them today. Wait, no, tomorrow. All right, hold on one second. I gotta type something real important. I gotta type a message to somebody. Oh, you on the. Hey, y'all, just give me a moment. This is an important message I gotta send back. I have to do some Shango rituals with someone, and we got to do them tomorrow. But we didn't discuss a time, so I know they want to plan around it. All right, so let me close that so we don't get any more bleeps and bloops. Yeah, so oh, come on now. Now you're gonna anyway, we're gonna ignore that now. So we're gonna keep it moving. So yeah, the depression piece is real key. Um so what happens a lot of times, and just to understand, because sometimes people don't understand the difference between being depressed and suffering from depression. It's two different things. Now, both of them can be transient. You don't necessarily have to suffer from depression continuously for months or for even years. It can be something that kind of comes and goes, but then you have some people who are kind of stuck in a permanent state of depression as well. There's different degrees of it. And primarily depression is it's created by illusion. Okay. And it's created by illusionary thoughts. Okay. Very similar to anxiety to a degree. All right. But depression is a bit different. So I'm speaking about the distinctions because in the conscious collectives, like I said, a lot of times I see there's a lot of trauma that people are dealing with, a lot of things that they've gone through, and which have brought them to their revelations in life, kind of wisened them up. But then there's a lot of times there's things that people are going through and they're trying to do and they're trying to get done, and they're having these blockages and they can't figure out how to get through them. And a lot of times we're not realizing that these people are actually depressed. We're thinking that they're lazy, or we're thinking that they're grumpy, or they're just negative, and we don't understand actually there's something slightly deeper going on than just that. Because, when a person is depressed, they are unmotivated. Of course, there are physical symptoms. A lot of times they want to sleep a lot, they're tired a lot. Of course, there's sadness, they have thoughts of hopelessness, which is really the key piece. They feel hopeless, like, they just can't get out of where they're at. And because depression, what it primarily is it's triggered by a thought. And essentially a person has a thought, and the thought has been repetitive. It's been beating them down for so long that it almost starts to absorb and become a part of their nature to a degree. It becomes a part of their actual spirit, you see. And then what happens is, once it becomes so much ingrained in their actual nature, their actual characteristics, they can't figure out how to source it. So, again, if you can imagine it, for those of you who have never experienced or suffered, because it's a very tormenting feeling. You're sad about something and you can't remember what you're sad about, but you can't stop feeling sad. Okay. Now I'm oversimplifying it. Okay. So I don't want anyone to think that's the definition of depression, but that is what it essentially, on a basic level, what the experience feels like. Okay. And sometimes it comes and goes, and you're not even a lot of times able to figure out what the triggers are, you see. So it's very difficult to source it, but you start to feel it, there's certain thoughts that come up. And, this relates to what we were speaking about yesterday when, moving in a room of vultures, one of the things that sometimes is done is lying. Now, if you look in Islamic, teaching, even if you look in Christian teaching, you have this idea of shaitan, or for the Christians, it being Satan, being the accuser of the brethren. Okay, that's in Christian law, but in Islamic law, shaitan is the whisperer of evil. Okay, so very similar. But one of the biggest differences, and even though they kind of still function the same, one of the biggest differences in Islamic law, the whisper kind of whispers in your own ear. So when you go to do certain things and you go to participate in certain activities, the whisper will always be that player hater in your head saying, no, you ain't gonna be able to do this. You ain't gonna be able to do that. That's not gonna work. You're doing wudu, or you're cleaning, you're cleaning yourself for salat. Oh, you're not pure. You'll never be pure. It doesn't matter how far up your elbow, you wash your hands. You're not pure. So there's constantly this whispering of evil that's pulling you into a darker place. And a lot of times when you constantly have that whispering in your ear, and we call those negative thoughts often, but I'm careful a lot of times how I use the term negative, or terms negative or positive, because a lot of times We need negativity, and we need positivity. We need to strip things away. But sometimes, all we want to hear is good things. Why don't you encourage me? Well, some behaviors and some thoughts need to be discouraged. So some things need to be destroyed, some things need to be built. So essentially, you do need negativity and positivity. And sometimes we end up demonizing certain terms because of our lack of understanding, or because of our addictions to standard and base level social vernacular, or wider social vernacular. And we don't want to do that. You don't want to do that, because sometimes you do that, you miss the point. So you don't want to aim for, I want positive, or I want negative. You don't want to aim for that so much. I like to look at it as, sometimes people will do harmful things. I replace negative with harmful or unpleasant, positive with advantageous, So again, it's that constant whispering of you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't. Now, again, if you understand Shaitan or Satan, understanding Set or understanding Saturn, same energies, you're understanding that, or satisfy, satiate, these are the energies of materialism. So these are the energies of the flesh. So this is where I was saying earlier that a lot of times, within our thinking, sometimes we don't realize, even our feelings, that our feelings or our thoughts are not necessarily coming from our soul. Even when we say, I feel it in my spirit, right? Which sometimes some statements don't even make sense, but that's a whole nother thing. But I feel it in my spirit. What about your soul? And then because some of us don't know the difference between the soul and the spirit, we'll say, well, yeah, I feel it, same thing in my soul. No, it's not the same thing. Your spirit can be confused. Your emotions can be confused. Your thoughts can be confused. You see, and Shaitan works with the material reality. Well, what's the material reality? Anything thought and forward. Thought forward, that's your materialism. So the materialism would be thought, emotions, and of course your body reality, or we may call it actions, or we call it your physicality. These are all products of the material. So when we say things like materialistic or being addicted to materialism, okay, materialism begins with thought, okay? Because what the thought does is it tells you that you're attached to something, you're connected to something, right? That's what the thought does. So you have a child. This is my son. This is my daughter. That's materialism, because it connects you to your social and your earthly attachments that only exist in your mind. You see, that's why you have some men sometimes that could live in the same neighborhood as a child that they never knew they had. Maybe the mother didn't tell them that was their child or whatever, and they find out years later, and then they establish the relationship with that child based on the thought, now this is my child. But there was nothing else that signified that. Okay. Now I know some might say, but you would feel it. Don't say nothing stupid like that. All right. Just listen to what I'm saying, please. Sometimes people are so bent on being contrary that they miss what's actually being taught. So it's a thought relationship. Even if you're married to somebody, you have a spouse. How do you know that that person is your spouse? Are they a spouse? Are they your spouse when they're not in the room? You might, of course, you say yes. Well, what makes them your spouse when they're not in the room? It's a thought. Well, I think this is my husband. I think this is my wife. You see, so those are all material attachments, essentially, right? So what happens when a person is suffering from depression, there is a thought that pops up and they begin to own the thought, you see, because many people, especially if you haven't really practiced meditation at a deep level with someone who actually knows how to meditate, and can really guide you through it, many people don't necessarily know how to control thought. Most people who teach you meditation will teach you how to observe thought. All right. And that's a passive thing, but that's essentially, that's not necessarily, that's not really consciousness, just to be able to be aware of something. The ability to control it is that's that God consciousness, you see. And that's very difficult to control. If you can control every thought that comes into your mind, essentially, you'd be like a warlock. I mean, even further past a warlock. You'd be an architect, a full, all-out, self-actualized architect of your entire reality, because your reality is comprised of thoughts. You see, your perceptual reality, what you perceive, is comprised of your thoughts. So if you're unwilling to let go of something that you see in a 3D tangible reality, that's a thought that you're unwilling to let go of. You see, you're unwilling to let go of that thought. You see. So okay, I see a comment in there. Nobody owns a thought. Darcy Hoover, 1968, says nobody owns a thought. Rethink that, Darcy. Rethink that idea that nobody owns a thought. Okay, thoughts are created. You're the creator of your thought. Think so. Just reflect on it a little bit more. That's all I'm gonna say. Reflect on it. So again, essentially, so the depression comes in because a thought comes, and it's a consistent thought, and you start to own that thought as if it's you. So again, the whisper of evil may constantly say, yeah, you ain't about nothing. You this, that. Your mama was a hooker. Your pops was a pimp. You didn't come from anything, and you'll never be anything. Or, these people might compare you with someone else. Someone else had a better start than you. You'll never get to where they are. Look at how old you are now. How are you going to catch up? This, that. But, it's all these different things. And we could go down a whole list of things that kind of bring us back into a space, right? Into a space that it's not necessarily as healthy, So with that idea and with that aspect, so now we fall into a depression. And what happens, see, depression is really spiritual, because we're creating spirit bodies, and then we're taking on the consciousness of a spirit body that we took on. It's almost like acting like your children, essentially, because you're creating the spirit body, and then you take on the energy and the essence of said spirit body as if it was the truth. Here's a real simple thing, right? Real simple way to understand it for those who may not be totally there yet. How you doing today? I'm tired. Right? You hear that a lot. I'm tired. How could you be tired? Your real self. We spoke about the self before, right? I think it was yesterday or the day before. No, your body's tired. You're not tired, but now you've identified with your body so much that whatever your body is feeling, you think that's actually you. You think that's you. You haven't really. So you're identifying with your material self. So what happens is, now when you have a thought, it goes into the body, and then the body now, or the emotional or the after effect, it creates a cycle. It's now controlling what you think. So it creates this cyclical effect. And then eventually, just like any cipher, you'll have trouble finding out where the starting point of the circle is. When did I start feeling this? When did I start hearing this? For some, it may go back to childhood, where someone may have said something to you. Oh, you're like this. You're fat. You're ugly. You talk funny. Whatever. You're skinny. Whatever it is, right? And what happens is, we forget that this is another person's thoughts. This is another person's words, but it's not necessarily at the core and at the essence of who and what we are. So what we do is we allow those thoughts and words to reverberate inside of us, you see? And then once those thoughts and words, they reverberate, then we say, okay, well, that must be me. Because especially in society, we have ideas like, you are what you think, you are your thoughts, and sometimes we forget the consciousness that exists before the thought, the consciousness that controls and governs the thought. Sometimes we lose that part. Okay, so that's a little bit of the depression piece. Now, anxiety is a bit different. And again, the reason why I'm bringing all of this up, because honestly, I see a lot of people in the conscious collective who are suffering from these things, and are throwing so many different things at the wall, trying to get something to stick. Meditation, crystals, oils, rituals, initiations, polygamy, all these different things, usually of excess, to try to shake the depression of what it is that they're feeling, right? And that's not where you're going to beat it. We're gonna speak about some methods, but I just want to first get us to a place where we have some common working. Who the heck is texting me? Some common working definitions. Okay, so now anxiety is a bit different because it's similar to depression in the sense that it's illusionary, right? But anxiety is a bit different because it comes from a good place, but it's again it's an inability to let go of something that we no longer need. Okay, so we have anxiety to keep us alive. Okay, we have anxiety to keep us alive. Yeah, Joel, I know that was a phase 1 training, Jim. I know. I know. I'm giving a little something that's in the class. It's in there. I'm glad that you caught that. That's actually very good. Identifying with your material self. That'll help y'all on the quizzes. That's good you caught it though. That's good. So yeah, so now when we're dealing with anxiety, right? And when I'm having these little sides, I want y'all to know I'm not crazy. I'm not talking to myself. I'm glancing at the chat sometimes. I see little things and I'll comment on them as they pop up in the chat. For those of you who are listening from Blog Talk or whatever, or not, can't see the YouTube chat. But yeah, so the other idea here, right, is present is anxiety. And again, anxiety comes initially from a good place. We use anxiety to keep us alive. When we have a fear of dying, something is going to kill us. We have a fear of dying. So we utilize anxiety to either run from what may kill us, or, we may freeze up, or we may fight. We may have an adrenal response. Okay, so anxiety is utilized for that. But what happens, again, anxiety unchecked or anxiety imbalanced, it becomes really dangerous because what happens, again, it becomes psychosomatic, right? And it could very similar to depression, it could become self-regenerative. You see, it's constantly feeding into these feelings like something is going to happen. Something is going to go wrong. And most of the time it comes from a feeling of being insecure. For more insight on that, I would say go back to the show I did on Mother. I don't remember the titles. Maybe somebody can put them in the chat room. But Mother, the mother-child shows that I did recently, where I spoke about what's received from the mother while the child is in utero, and what goes from the mother's navel chakra straight to, it goes from the mother's sacral chakra straight to the child's navel chakra, which creates that security and, of course, also safety. The mother holds that child within the womb so it can be safe while it's in there, so it can't be harmed and attacked from external forces, So the thing is with anxiety, that age-old fight or flight, flight. They always say fight or flight, but I say fight, flight, freeze, because there's another response. I've seen people in really tough situations before, and just kind of their legs froze under them. Everybody else was running, and it might have been another group that was ready, standing to fight. So, I say fight, fright, or freeze. But what happens is that they get stuck into that space because of a sense of insecurity. A lot of times, sometimes it comes from ideas of excessive external judgment, or this is not going to work. That's not going to work. This isn't going to happen for me. That's not going to happen for me. So, and again, for more background on that, check out the show on the 4 signs of self-sabotage, because self-sabotage is a product of anxiety. So because I'm anxious about this situation and I'm feeling this physical response now, I'm stiffening, and I have this extreme arousal that's happening now. My heart rate is going. I may be sweating, and, I'm breaking out in cold sweats. I need to take control, because taking control once again, it's really that helps to resolve anxiety, but some people take control in the most unhealthy of ways. So what they'll do is whatever the effort is or the initiative that they're trying to get accomplished, they'll sabotage it so that they no longer have to feel that anxiety, and they can say, well, I took control. I affected what my destiny was going to be. So now I don't have to suffer from that feeling, you see. So anxiety is, again, it comes from a healthy place, and it really is, it's the reason why you and I are here today talking. It's the reason why we're alive, because our Egun had anxiety at times when it was important to have it, but understood when to let it go. I'm safe now. I don't need that. Now, and I'll get deeper into the anxiety piece, but I want to get to the PTSD a little bit. And again, let me just put it out because I know we're past 20 minutes in. That's when everybody shows up. 515-605-9862 if you want to speak. Just hit the number 1. 515-605-9862. Hit the number 1. All right. So PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder. No, excuse me. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Sister DeGroy, she's pretty much changed that acronym for me forever, with her talks on post-traumatic slave disorder. But PTSD in common sense is post-traumatic stress disorder. And, a lot of times, again, in the conscious collectives, you have individuals who are suffering from that, and the slave disorder as well. And sometimes, because we look at the word post-traumatic stress disorder, sometimes people think stress is only for people who are making big moves, people with money, or that's a white collar, issue, stress. No, stress is so elusive because you can't put your finger on it. You can't cut a person open and find stress. So it's very difficult. It's very elusive. And a lot of times as a result, it goes undiagnosed, now, in dealing with PTSD, ultimately, just look at the words, post-traumatic. There was a trauma, right? Post-traumatic, but this is after the trauma. And now, because of after the trauma, there's a stress disorder that's taken on. Now, how does one get PTSD? You know what? I'm gonna tell you something. It's way easier than what you might imagine. And that's why I wanted to speak about this. PTSD, a lot of times people think like it's only for veterans. Now, of course, there's a lot of veterans who have post-traumatic stress disorder, but you don't have to go to war to get PTSD. Something as simple as somebody telling you to shut up. Something, because that's a very violent act. You tell somebody, shut up. Think about what that does to you, especially considering who says it, right? Think about how it shuts things down in you, right? Obviously being threatened. Being hit, being in an environment or a situation where you feel like you're bombarded by harmful situations, even if those harmful situations are not directed towards you, but you're just around them. They're within your environmental context. Harmful situations. This can create post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. It's not just somebody went away to war, and saw some craziness or was commanded to do some craziness. And now as a result, they now have post-traumatic stress disorder. All right. So we're going to get into it. Let me take a call. 813, you're on the air.
Chief, I don't know what just happened. That was Blog Talk just throwing me in there. I didn't press no buttons, but greetings. How you doing, sir?
Peace. I'm not surprised. Okay, cool. No problem. You know how it does, man. Its days are numbered, so it's all good.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, it's all good, bro.
All right, cool.
All right.
That was funny. So yeah, you guys know how Blog Talk does, man. It's no big secret at this point. But yeah, I saw Sequoia said being bullied. Absolutely. Being bullied will create a stress disorder because it is traumatizing. Now, and let me put this out there too in terms of the idea of being bullied, because it really has changed over the years. And, we have to look at how things evolve. And sometimes we can be a little insensitive to it. For me, as a child, I grew up in the era of, Sticks and stones will hurt my bones, but your words will never hurt me. And that's what we used to chant. Sticks and stones will hurt my bones. But as we grow and we evolve as a society and as a collective, we learn that, okay, maybe that's not 100% accurate. Maybe there's some other things that can actually hurt us. So I found, with me personally, I found a certain degree of insensitivity by the generation past, older generations, to some of the concepts of bullying today. Now, yeah, I will admit there's even a part of me that sometimes is like, come on, what I mean? Go out in the schoolyard and fight that one out. But again, that's because of the era that I come from, which may not be the healthiest. Okay. Before me, children were leaving school at 5th grade, 6th grade to go work on farms. Or in West Virginia, you had 8, 9-year-olds working in coal mines. Now I would consider that to be pretty rough. Maybe even a degree of abuse to some degree. These children coming out and got scoliosis, all kind of back issues because they hunched over all day in a mine, and stuff like that. But again, things change, things evolve over the years. Whether children are getting softer or whether we're finding new and improved and more advanced ways to destroy them, is really up for debate. But like I said, a lot of times, I see in a sense that people are ignoring, or they're just insensitive to where some of the bullying and things that young people are going through today. But okay, so back to it, right? So we have this idea of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And what happens a lot of times is, we're talking about the signs of it. A lot of times you'll have triggers, because that's really when you really see it. I think I had shared in one of the shows recently, about an elder who I grew up with, one of my friend's fathers, who was in Vietnam, and certain sounds and stuff he didn't like around him, it would set off his triggers. That's an example of post-traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes something will happen to a person. Like, let's say, for instance, if you grew up in a house where maybe you were abused, right? Maybe your parent made you drink sour milk, for instance, and you remember that, like, they would make me drink the sour milk or something like that. Now, as you get older, what happens is, you smell sour milk, it takes you back to that place where you were traumatized. Post-traumatic stress disorder. And why is it a disorder? Because that's not the natural body's way of dealing with things. See, what happens with PTSD, a person is in a space psychologically and emotionally where they have not been able to process what it is that they're feeling. They have not been able to process their emotions. So, and we do this with anxiety as well. See, this is the similarity with anxiety and PTSD. Now, with depression, it's a little bit different, because depression, people don't even know where it started. Why am I so sad? Why, everything's cool. It's a sunny day. I'm inside with all the curtains closed, or I'm at a barbecue and everyone's having fun and I'm joking a lot. I'm playing dominoes, and then now I don't want to be here. It's different. Now, why don't I want to be? I can't figure it out, which makes me even more sad. Because it's elusive. I can't figure out where it's coming from. It's like when you have something that happened to me earlier. They had something in my eye, couldn't find it. I'm salt water and rubbed all my eye like crazy, could not get this thing out of my eye. So I just sat with one eye closed for about an hour, and then it eventually just stopped, whatever it was. Okay. That's similar to it. Can't figure out where it's coming from, right? So with PTSD, though, what happens is that there's something that happened in a person's life that they weren't able to process. And for whatever reason, they're still not processing it, because your body's natural reaction to anything that it's feeling emotional, it has a natural built-in processing function. It wants to work through it. It wants to process it. It wants to go through it and see what's happening. You know what? Spirit driven. I found this function. I was looking at the chat room from yesterday's segment, and you could put people on timeout. It says, yeah, I just pulled up the menu, put user in timeout. I clicked right next to your name. It says put user in timeout. Yeah. Something else, boy. It's technology. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So anyway, back to what we were saying. So yeah, so what happens a lot of times is we're not able to go through our natural process of processing whatever the feeling is that we're experiencing. Okay. So now it creates again this cyclical buildup inside of us. Okay. It creates a cyclical buildup. So what happens, like, let's say again, your parent made you, drink sour milk, or I'll give you one, for example, good example. There was a woman I knew years ago, and she had a stepmother when she was growing up, and her stepmother used to bathe her in the dirty bath water that her biological children had already finished bathing in. She would put her in after they would take their bath. She would put her in there, right? So obviously this was something that over the years, as a child, she didn't necessarily see it initially. She didn't necessarily see it as a problem initially. Dietrich, you asking, isn't that a form of NLP? You're reaching too far, brother. Bring it back. Pull back on the reins. Bring it back. All right. Bring it back. Y'all be doing that too much, man. I start talking about something. Oh, that's the same thing as it. Pull back. Pull back. Stand down. No, it's not. I'm messing with you. But yeah, so she would put her in the dirty bath water. So, when I was interacting with her, she must have been maybe in her I'd say late 20s, man. Maybe mid to late 20s. Yeah, around late 20s, right? And she used to talk about that. So, we're talking about something that happened, maybe 20 years ago. But she never was really able to process it, because see, what happens is that sometimes we're bombarded by situations that are so unreasonable that the mind doesn't have the ability to put to order them. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Disorder is the key word. See, things that happen to us in our normal waking life, no matter what it is, the mind wants to make sense of it. Okay. And if it can't make sense of it, remember, it goes from thought to emotion. If it can't make sense of it, then you'll have trouble emotionally processing it. So it gets stuck because you weren't able to think through it. So let's say, for instance, so you come into the house one day, somebody you really love and care about just hauls out and smacks the daylights out of you and then walks away. But they've never done anything like that. That's not even in the nature. You didn't do anything to them. You guys don't have a violent relationship like that. It wasn't about, some sexual thing or anything. You can't figure out why the heck did they do this. So you can't really make sense of it, you see. So the hurt, the pain, the anger that you may feel from what they just did, you're unable to process it. So it gets stuck inside of you in a loop. You see, so even though the trauma has already occurred, there's an after effect, there's a ripple, post-traumatic, you see, because you weren't able to actually process what actually happened to you. You see, there's been no healing experience in that sense. Now, again, if you look within the conscious collectives, this is rampant. This whole spirit, not only because of, again, what the genius Sister DeGroy says, Joyce DeGroy, in terms of post-traumatic slave disorder, but there's also some very base things that we see in our society every single day that are difficult to add up. I'll give you one example. I think I mentioned this on the show. When I was a child, I remember asking my mother. I was very confused about McDonald's. We weren't allowed to eat McDonald's. And I remember asking her, like, well, if it's so bad, why did they make it? And I couldn't reconcile that. I couldn't figure that out. Like, if adults, because I'm a child now. I'm a child. So if adults made this and they know that children are going to eat it and they know that it's going to kill the children, why would they have made it? Now, in my child's brain, like I understand now why now, but in my child's brain at that time, I couldn't process that thought. And whatever she must have told me, which I don't remember, it didn't work, because I still couldn't process it. So there was a time period where I was almost afraid of McDonald's. Literally, like, no, like if I'm out, on a trip or something or with somebody else, oh yeah, I want some McDonald's. I want a McDonald's. Because I couldn't make sense of it. You see, even the colors, the red and the yellow, and Ronald McDonald, and back then you had Grimace and the Hamburglar, and I ain't like none of them. They all trauma. They all made me afraid because I couldn't reconcile why somebody would do that. Why adults? Because when you're a child, you look at adults differently. You look at adults like, they're all knowing. they're all the Wizard of Oz. So in knowing that this is gonna kill children, you must have wanted to kill children on purpose. So Ronald McDonald, Hamburglar, Grimace, they're all out to kill me, essentially. You see? Now, obviously you get to the point where you learn, like, okay, it's not that. But again, you have certain triggers. So I'm just giving you an example. So now if that thought was never processed, years later, I could be 40, 50, 60 years old. I smell McDonald's or I see the arches, and that those same feelings of trauma, I go right back to being that 5, 6-year-old child, and confronting and looking at McDonald's. You see? So that's just an example, of what I'm talking about, of how it works. And a lot of us have those kind of triggers. For some of us, it could be something we saw on TV. It could be something that we saw in the newspaper, or something that somebody shared with us, or again, bullying, or something that happened to us that creates, again, this disorder. And a disorder is a result of our inability to arrange and make sanity out of insanity. You see, that's why I was speaking about recently on another segment that we sometimes there's certain situations that arise as a part of being in the Anglosphere or being in Western society that we don't really have a traditional answer for because they're so far left, and on honesty, like even when I'm back home, sometimes I don't share everything, you know, um, because it's almost embarrassing, to share like some of the things that we go through, some of the things that we deal with, some of the ways that our children act. They have their own impression, and they try to emulate what we do over here. But some of the things are so difficult to explain, that is very different, especially if you're speaking to someone, that there might be a slight language barrier to explain why certain things would be done, or some of the things that we argue and we fight over, things like that, because of, again, our post-traumatic stress disorder that we're still dealing with here, you see, and all of the triggers that we have, because we have a lot. We have a lot of triggers, and often this is used in combination with a historical genetic inclination towards anxiety, because you stay ancient. You stay anxious when you're in an environment where you constantly are aware of the predators around you. So you're constantly always stuck in that fight, flight, freeze response. You see, and that when you have that constant response and those neurons are going off, it affects the way you think. You see, not just that you think aggressively, but if you're constantly in a position where you feel afraid, you feel like the worst is going to happen to you. And I mean, sometimes it's the smallest things. If I go and try to talk to that woman over there and tell her I find her attractive, whatever, she's gonna laugh at me. You know, I can taste my own breath right now. My breath probably stinks. She's gonna look down at my shoes. I got these cheap shoes on today. You know, whatever it is, you're gonna think about all these horrible scenarios of what's gonna happen, because just the idea of confronting something and processing a feeling or processing a thought creates all of this anxiety inside of you. So sometimes we'll freeze, we'll fight, we'll become hostile, or we'll run. You see, and the society understands that. So they keep you constantly in that place. I mean, look at the news. Look at the newspaper. You never read anything good in the newspaper. Never. You look on the news, bad news. Every night. You know, what are we showing tonight? Bad news. The first stuff that comes on the news is always something bad. The first stuff, you know, so for the first 10, 15 minutes is bad stuff. Trying to traumatize you to keep you inside the house. It's a form of containment. You know, prescriptive anxiety is a form of social containment. We don't need to push tanks in the street. We don't even have to. You scared to come outside. We got all these stories about these slashers, you know, stuff like that, and all these different things that you don't know if they're true or not. But it's a form of a psyops, form of psychological containment. You see, so then you then include that with the ideas of depression. Well, if you constantly feel like you're under attack or you're in a predatory society, and you begin to identify with your fear, I am the fear, I am afraid, it's going to create a cycle of depression. And of course, without being able to process those, because a lot of them come from a total illogical place, you now begin to suffer from PTSD. That's why sometimes when you all hear me speak about certain things, are very matter of fact, especially as it pertains to interpersonal relationships, to the point that you may think I'm being mean or whatever. But sometimes we need people to bring proper perspective. You know, like I've had people call up or speak to me in sessions and say, "Oh, my mother did this to me, and my mother did that, and I don't know what it was, and why she was so hard on me, and why she did these things, make me sit in a bathtub of dirty water, stuff like that." And I'll just say, you know, your mother probably didn't love you. Let's get right to it. Let's deal right with it. Your mother didn't love you. All right. Just because she was your mother doesn't mean she had to love you. You know, doesn't mean that she was versed and trained in how to be a mother. You know, she might not have even wanted you. You know, but we're so scared to say things like that because we're afraid of other people's triggers. You see, but when you're able to speak matter of fact like that and shed light, what happens is you start to, yeah, I knew this was going to be a depression show. I just saw that link. I saw the word depressing. Let's see what it says. This call is kind of depressing for me, seeing some of the comments along with my own thoughts, experience, stuff. Yeah, I knew it was going to be I told you at the beginning of the show, though. Come on now. I warned you. Plus, you saw the title. But you got to hear it. You got to hear it, man, because a lot of you are creating roadblocks for yourself, and you're owning stuff that you have no business owning. It's not even yours. Someone implanted a thought inside of you, and you now think that that thought is you. Someone planted a spirit baby on your doorstep of a thought, a raggedy thought about you, and you picked it up. So, oh, let's take it in. Oh, it's so cute, and now look at you, stuck in a cycle because you owned somebody else's, you know, orgasm, spirit orgasm that wasn't even yours. You know, so again, usually we'll identify PTSD. Sometimes, a lot of times, people are suffering from that. They become control freaks. You see, because there were certain situations that may have happened in their lives that they begin to own. You know, if I would have just done this, or I would have just done that, or maybe someone was so mean to me because I couldn't figure out a way to get them to really love me. You know, they just didn't love me. So, you know, I should have been more of this. I should have given more of this. I should have been more freakier in the bed. You know, I should have had more money. I should have been more stern. I should have been more of an a-hole. You know, we go through the whole list. should have been, right? And what happens is then now we move with this desire to control everything, because if we start to see certain things that resemble something that happened before, a trigger that happened before, then we say, oh, we got to take control. So say, for instance, you could have been in a relationship with someone, and let's say on the first date, right, you go out and I don't know, I'm gonna come on with a crazy thing hypothetically. You at a restaurant, they say, hey, come, why don't you try some of my food? And you say, nah, I'm good, right? And time progresses, and you end up splitting up, right? And the person says, you just weren't open enough, you weren't adventurous enough, whatever it is, right? You might relate it to that first date. It's illogical, but you might relate it to the first date and say, oh man, if I would have been more open, I probably shut everything down in that time when I didn't eat the food off of the person's fork or whatever like that. So now what happens is you go to a restaurant with someone and you're jumping at it. You say, hey, why don't you try some of my food? Person says, no, I don't want to. You might become hostile, or you might get turned off, or you might say, hey, can I try some of that? And they might be like, nah, I don't, I'm good. Eat your food. or we ordered the same thing. What are you talking about? Try some of this. And what happens as a result now, because that's a trigger that's present, and you still feel like you need to control that moment. You need to go back and control what happened, control the moment. You see? So it creates like these really strong control mechanisms to try to rewrite history in a way. I'm gonna go to the room for a second. So Michelle asks, let me read this out. Chief, is depression related to not recognizing the authority in our own soul and not recognizing that our troubles are self-created? Not necessarily. Okay. Yes and no. The first part of what you said, yes. Second part, no. So the first part, I'll break it down again for those listening. Chief, is depression related to not recognizing the authority in our own soul? Okay. Yes, because you have the ability to write your own story. You have the ability to say, I'm going to feel this, I'm going to feel that. And because I'm connected to my soul, I'm not necessarily what you put on me. I'm not necessarily what I feel today. Because right now, if, let's say, for instance, everybody in the chat room, if I just started cursing all of you out right now, F all y'all, and, boom, 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 I'm about to go on my shrine right now and hex everyone. I'm copying everybody's name down. Y'all can get the BALLS, right? And then 10 seconds later, I say, oh man, I'm just messing with y'all, right? You're going to let go of the thought that he's about to go into a shrine and hex us. You see, but in that moment that I was saying it, you would think, oh man, he's gonna hex us. He's cursing us out, without logically thinking, like, wait a minute, I didn't do anything. Like, he's probably playing. You see, so when you're sitting and standing in the authority of your soul, you recognize, no, wait a minute. Whatever emotion that he just fueled in me, whatever I just felt just now is not me. Could have been anger, but that ain't me. Because just as quickly as he said it and I felt it, he said something else and I didn't feel it after that. So then that can't be me, because I can't change that quick. Like if I say, oh, y'all a bunch of dummies and look at these stupid questions and boom, 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 right? And then you feel like a dummy. And then I say, oh, I'm just messing with you. You ain't no dummy. So in that moment, when I made you feel, this goes back to emotional perception, Sequoia, made you feel that, you had the choice to own it and say, I'm a dummy because I feel like a dummy. But then when I say, no, I'm just joking, come on now. And you say, oh, well, I guess I'm not a dummy, because now you're not making me feel like a dummy. You see, that's how elusive it can be in that sense. Now, the second part of your question, I'm sorry, I got to scroll up a little bit. Second part which I was saying not really, is okay, and not recognizing that our troubles are self-created. Well, depression comes from the idea of that, thinking that, again, someone has implanted, or someone really, it's usually an external idea that was planted, even if it's Shaitan, because Shaitan, the whisper of evil, is that's the material reality. So it's still external, or it's still distinct from your soul reality. So it's still something from the outside implanting an idea, and then you owning that idea. You see, now, the idea of not recognizing that our troubles are self-created. I mean, that's just ego. That's just plain old. That's just plain old ego and arrogance. That's different. So yeah, to answer that, I'm gonna go through some of these questions. Even though I didn't get through everything. Maybe I'll finish up some of this tomorrow, because it's a lot to this. I know I picked 3 different concepts: anxiety, depression, and PTSD. In fact, truth be told, I could have separated them into 3 different shows, but I didn't want to keep talking about something like this. I got to give y'all a little bit. Gloria Capo says, can you bury the thing that happened? There are parts of my childhood I do not remember. Oh, they're in there, player. They're in there. No, you can't bury it. That's what creates the depression. You can't bury it. And you remember them. The fact that you know that there's parts to your childhood that you do not remember is proof that you do remember them, because you recognize that there's something there. That's like saying there's rooms in my house, there's doors that I've never opened, but you recognize that the doors are there and there's something inside of there. So it's not gone, it's still there. Absolutely. And it affects your behavior like a parasite would affect your behavior. It creates an imbalance. All right. So I'm gonna keep going through. I'm just looking for question marks, basically. Chief, can you shut off PTSD by just accepting that there may be no understanding of why some stuff happened? No. You can't, because the truth is there's always an understanding. There's always a route to trace. If you try to utilize that method, you'll end up suffering from depression, because again, you're feeling something, you can't pinpoint it, you can't put your finger on it. I mean, that's a good question, though. That's a very good question, and I'll say it again. Can you shut off PTSD by just accepting that there may be no understanding of why some stuff happened? It's fine line, and in fact, you may go to a therapist, and they would probably tell you to do that. In all honesty, they would probably tell you to do that, but no, it doesn't really work like that, because with PTSD is something that you actually experience. It's not like depression, where it's coming from a thought. See, look at it like this: depression typically comes from a thought. Anxiety comes from an emotion, which of course comes from a thought, but it's more emotion based. And PTSD is usually experience based. It's something that you actually experienced. You see, so again, even like I said, you come home, somebody just smacked the mess out of you. Well, you can still say like, okay, that happened because there's something wrong with that person. You can still source it and trace it, as opposed to, or maybe you did something. Maybe you deserve to get smacked in the face. You might have done something. You can trace it. Depression is it's a little bit different. So no, you can't just shut it off by saying, well, that's just the way the world is. That's just how it goes. That's why we suffer from it today, because there's been no mass healing ritual where we've been able to really reconcile some of these situations. I'll give you an easy one right here. Did we sell our own people into slavery or not? You see, did the Moors create agreements where they actually held Africans as their own slaves and traded their own people, or not? You see, going to some of those critical questions that we're running from, which is what anxiety does. Anxiety urges you not to process the feeling. So it creates a larger emotion and feeling than what it really is. Oh, if I go up and I try to apply for this job, they're going to look at my record and they're going to see that time, when I streaked in college and got arrested for streaking, and So we create this mountain that's not really present. Anxiety does that. It's the emotion. So yeah, just to answer that. Again, I'm just going through the question marks. So Arthur Bonilla says, so is it bad to be prepared for the worst? No, not at all. But again, that question can be placed in many different contexts and can be wrong depending on the context you place it in. If you have PTSD and somebody points it out and you say, so is it bad to be prepared for the worst? Now it becomes an excuse. Okay, so again, it's about the context in that sense. I'm just looking for question marks and then I'll keep going. Okay. And please pardon me if you did ask a question and you didn't put a question mark. There's so much in the chat room that I'm not reading every sentence. I'm just scanning and see wherever I see a question mark and then speaking from that place. Feeling disconnected from the world. I don't know what you're asking. Okay, Vijo says, are there other ways to overcome PTSD and depression other than meditation? Absolutely. In fact, I wouldn't necessarily say that meditation is really the resolve, especially when it comes to anxiety and depression. You want to work from the outside in. Most things we work from the inside out. We start with our spirit of thoughts and emotions, and with that, because you feel it first in your body chemistry. So work with that first. I'm gonna tell you, when you're feeling anxiety, I'm gonna show you how you already know the solution. When you're feeling nervous about something, you notice how a pat or a rub on the back or a hug or someone holding your hand can dissipate the feeling. Because remember, you first feel anxiety, for instance, and even PTSD. You first feel it in your body. That's where the symptom becomes obvious. Okay, so a lot of times by utilizing that from the outside in is where you can start to quell it. You start to quell it, so you can actually put yourself in a place where you can process the feeling. It's almost like when you have a child who's hysterical, and you need to hold them and coddle them so that they can calm down enough so you can actually speak to them. So then they can actually process what you're saying. So yeah, that's something that is very accessible, even more so than meditation, I would say, that you can utilize to, begin to fix that. All right, so I see some more question marks. And my brothers, my ladies getting ready to come on in a couple of seconds. All right, so y'all don't mind her. It's just getting late and she all right. So in about 10 seconds, for those of you who are not called in, or if you get cut off from Blog Talk or whatever, just jump over to YouTube and we'll finish it up there.
90 seconds.
She loved me, boy. You heard the way she said it? You hear the emotion in her voice? Oh man, she never had it so good. All right. So Sequoia says, if we don't remember most of our childhood, would it be wise to try and remember it? Well, that's, again, I know it feels like I'm nitpicking, but you do remember it.
60 seconds.
She put all that she put into it. A lot of spittle. If we don't remember most of our childhood, would it be wise to try to remember it? Well, if your childhood is affecting and dictating your adulthood, then yeah, you gotta process some of those things. Absolutely. But I guarantee you remember them. Suppression is not amnesia. Madam Maat says, how do we become conscious of these conditions to proactively alter the mind state? Well, think about the things that I just listed and I said, and do any of those symptoms apply to you? That's basically what it's. It's just being aware.
10 seconds.
She put a little husk in her voice that time, a little bit of huskiness. Yeah. So yeah, think about the things that I just shared with you all, in terms of some of the symptoms, and that will help you to become consciously aware of it. Again, it's are you in a situation, are you in an environment where you're having to make sense of insanity? Now, let's keep it real. I already know all of you are. I know it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, so are you saying that we all have PTSD? I bet 90% of you who are listening right now do. And and it's a good question, because sometimes you may not be aware of it, but think about the things that trigger you and set you up. Here's the easy one right here. Here's the easy one. For you melanoid listeners, male and female. You're driving down the street, you pass a strip mall, you see a cop car hanging out, part of the driveway. How do you feel? And your paperwork is straight. Everything's tight. Insurance is good. Car is registered. You ain't got no warrants. You ain't got no butt in the car. Anything like that. How do you feel? Or the cop actually pulls out after you drive by, but all your stuff is straight. How do you feel? What happens? Does your heartbeat stay the same? Okay. So it's just an example. So look at different things in your life that are similar. You go into a store, and you go into the store, and someone comes up to you, no one else, and they say, can I help you? What happens? Here's an easy one, right? I saw something about the school system in there. Your child is in the public school system, something happens, you got to go to school to speak to one of the administrators. How do you feel about it? How do you feel in the pit of your stomach? Just think about it, right? So you'd be surprised, man. These triggers are all around us because we live in a society that keeps us in that fight or flight or freeze, posture. Let me get to some of these other questions. I know there was a couple other. Can anxiety stem from scarcity or vice versa? So can anxiety stem from scarcity, or can scarcity stem from anxiety? Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's the feeling like I'm gonna die. Why do babies cry when they're hungry? One, because you're a sucker, they're pimping you. They know if they cry, you're gonna come running. But aside from that, because they feel like they're gonna die. Why do we flinch when something crosses in front of your eyes? You feel like you're gonna die. Now, I know someone listening like, no, I don't flinch because of that. I don't want stuff to get my eye. Just think about it, please. Okay, so let's go. I'm looking at questions. I think I might have cleared them out. Okay. Would hypnosis be a way to overcome? Let me say this to y'all. All right. Stop looking for the conscious community solutions. They don't work. So I know you asked that question. Would hypnosis be a way to overcome? Yes, it could. It could be. Yeah. But I just want you all to be careful about how far you're overreaching, especially those of you who are asking for solutions, right? I want you to think about this. While you're asking me, would this work, would that work, would that work? I want you to think about this. Did you understand what I just finished talking about? Did you process what I just finished explaining to you for the past 2 hours? Has it been 2 hours or an hour and a half? Oh, I put the wrong time on the thing. For the past hour and a half, have you processed what I've been sitting here teaching you? If you haven't, stop jumping ahead. And I'm not getting on anybody. I'm trying to give you some insight. Y'all do that way too much. And you end up thinking that you have something that you don't really have. And then what happens is the problem still persists. Because right now, all I have to do is this. I know my listeners. I know my people. All I have to do is give you a ritual, which will entail something that you keep on your person, some type of crystal or some type of charm or wanga or, medicine bag. And you'll think that you have anxiety, depression, and PTSD licked. because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a microwave solution. I know you all. I know you. You see. So what I'm telling you is that, or I'm even asking you, do you even understand what I just said? If you haven't processed that, because the whole problems with all of these situations, from depression to anxiety to PTSD, it deals with the inability to process your emotions. The inability to process your emotions. And sometimes what we do is we skip over the emotions real quick. We'll say, all right, Chief, well, what can I do to the, well, will this work? Can I do that? Did you even understand what was said? Did you process what was said to you? And I know you may be hearing me and feel like, oh, he's just nitpicking, but sometimes you gotta remember, I've actually been doing this for a real long time. So I know the usual responses, and not only do I know the usual responses that people say, I pretty much know where people's minds are at when I'm teaching. You know, and you can tell a lot of times, even by the questions that come forth, if people really actually understood what you just finished teaching. And if they didn't, stop jumping for solution. Sometimes y'all overcomplicate things. You know, because I'll break this down to you. You won't even understand what I just said. And again, V. Joe, I'm not speaking to you. I'm just saying, I'm giving you a general warning. This is a impromptu PSA. This is an impromptu PSA. Sometimes people, you know, because listening skills, you know, I talk about that a lot. People don't listen. Terrible listening skills, you know. Heck, we even know that with the new sedulahouse.com website. People are messaging, inboxing me and Kim for customer service stuff. We say on every show and everything, this is where you go to get that information. And y'all inboxing me. Or I had 2 people inbox me on the Sedula House website and ask how they can sign up for my class. Now, let me help you. Let me help you with something there. The way you even get a login to get into the site is from purchasing something out of the store. Think about that. So you in the store and you're emailing me on the site where the classes are to ask me how to get a class. I still got people emailing me asking me, how do I get a reading? You know, and I had to take down all of those get a reading signs all over the site. I had them all over the site, not because I was trying to advertise readings, but because we was getting so many emails. Even though there was clear links, click here for reading, click here, click. People don't read and they don't listen, you know? So I'm just saying in general, and I'm not getting on you guys. You don't have to apologize, Sequoia. I'm not getting on, I'm helping you. I'm not saying what I'm saying because I'm riffing. I want you to really understand the tone. You know, sometimes with people who are thorough, I'm a very thorough person. So that's why you notice sometimes the shows go way over. Like if I got calls coming in, especially when we used to do the Sunday Chief Speaks, because all them last minute calls, which I should have just been hanging up on and saying, oh, you should have called earlier, you know. But I'm a thorough person. When I give you something, I try to really make sure you get it. You know, so sometimes people mistake thoroughness for agitation. You know, if you have the ability to sit and really explain something, or someone asks you a question, like they may say, hey, why do you do that? Why do you drink that? And you say, oh, I drink that because this and it does this, that, and I appreciate this. And I don't, you know, why don't you drink soda? Because of all this, da, 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 da. And then they're like, okay, all right, okay, I'm just asking. You know, and you're not being rude or anything. You're not agitated. It's just that sometimes people are not used to people being able to articulate their stance, and they articulate it at a certain depth where they can be thorough about it. So I want to be clear. I'm explaining what I'm explaining right now, not because I'm annoyed by a question or anything like that. I'm just being thorough so that way you really understand what I'm saying. And a lot of times when I'm speaking to you guys, I'm giving you the stumbling blocks that are in your path. I'm showing you what hems you up a lot. People trying to rush. They get a little bit of information. You know, y'all do that a lot with with our new spiritual training phase 1. You fly through everything. You barely pass the quizzes and stuff. And then come at me, all right, what's next? And I know those of you probably in the chat think I'm talking to you specifically. I'm not, but I am. You know, I've said that to you before. You don't really get it. You don't really understand it. And I'll say, well, okay, well, if you get it, explain this to me. Oh, I got to look in the book for that. That means you don't get it. Leave me alone. Stop bothering me. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people don't really understand it, you know, in that sense, man. A lot of people don't understand that. If you want to be able to heal and get through these situations and grow in the sense of getting past and processing things, you're gonna have to process them. And your anxiety has certain triggers that keep you from learning. You know, I start saying stuff, I start teaching, people call and change the subject, or try to change the subject, or try to jump to a solution. All right, so you're saying I should do this? Which like it's just like if you're trying to teach someone how to eat something, maybe they have a sickness, and you say, hey, you know, if you do this, or if you do that, it's going to cause this problem, or cause that problem, and cause that problem. And they say, all right, well, just all right. I don't need all that. Just tell me what to drink or what to eat. I don't need all that. Yes, you do need all of that. Because I'm trying to give you the science behind the full action. It's not just about rushing to the destination, you know. So I'm giving you all those examples so you can kind of work through a lot of these issues, because I know a lot of you are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of you are dealing with depression. A lot of you are dealing with anxiety. That's one of the reasons why you buy the course and then don't do it. You buy the books and don't read them. You know, you're afraid of what's going to come next. You know, you're afraid of what's going to change next. You know, what's going to happen as a result. So you stay in that fight, flight, or freeze response, triple F. You know, so either way, you know, it's kind of like what I was saying to you earlier, Sequoia, with balancing the emotion with the thinking. The two are not going to exist in the same space at the same time. Some people don't realize that. You know, you can't be emotional and be thinking at the same time. You know, that's one of the reasons why don't argue. It's stupid to argue. I don't argue. It's dumb. There's no point. Don't argue. You know, once you get to that point where you're hostile, or there's emotion, or your ego is flared up, you're not thinking. You know, I'm sorry, you're just not. You're not going to be thinking. You know, so the two are not going to exist in the same place, even though you feel it. And sometimes people will correlate or assimilate thoughts with emotion. You know, they'll use I thought and I felt interchangeably. And you can't. The two are not going to fit in the same place at the same time. So sometimes, even when it comes to this information, and when I say this, I'm not talking about me or I knew. I'm saying conscious information in general. People try to make it an excursion of emotion, because as long as it stays hyped up and it stays emotional, they know they don't necessarily have to think. Because once they start thinking is going to cause them to begin to try to process what they're feeling, which is going to break them out of the anxiety. It's going to break them out of the PTSD. It's even going to break them out of the depression. You see, when they start to really rationalize certain things, where did this thought come from? Is this thought even a part of my philosophy? And if it's not even a part of my personal philosophy, then is it possible that it came from somewhere else? Now we're getting somewhere. Where could it have come from? And you know, that's when you get conscious. Honestly, you know, we talk about coming into consciousness and coming into culture and things like that. You know, it's when you get to that moment and to that place where you're jumping over the cloudiness of the thoughts that have been planted into you. That's the rapture. When that pineal comes online and it rises above the clouds of the left and right brain hemispheres, which have been manipulated by Yahweh, or been manipulated by the one who can control your senses, who can give you that 7 chakra lockdown. Okay. And that pineal rises above it, and you see, wait, what the heck? You know, you take a journey through your mind and you're like, where did this come? What that? Where's that? Oh my goodness. And you see all that stuff that's in there that you didn't ask for, you didn't call to you. That's your consciousness. You see? Because at the very least, you're observing. You're observing your thoughts. At the very least. You see? So that's your lock and your release out of your depression. You got to process, man. And there's not enough stones and crystals you can rub on. I'm telling you. And you're talking to a crystal rubber. You know, there's not enough of that stuff and rituals that you can do that will get you out of that. All right, I see another question. So we need to master how to process our emotions so that when life happens, we can go through it without living or being shackled by the past. Yeah, that's one way. Yeah. hmm That's an approach that will work. So I'll say it again. Yeah, that's one of the solutions. So we need to master how to process our emotions so that when life happens, we can go through it without living or being shackled by the past. Yeah. Because essentially your past is your thoughts. And that's again your attachment to materialism. You know, because you're attached to your thoughts. Your thoughts, and those are thoughts that come from your brain, not your mind. Right? So it's being produced from your material reality. Your mind is saying something completely different because your mind is timeless. You know, that's when we get into that realm of consciousness, right? So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is one of the ways that you can get through it. You got to learn to process emotion, you know. You got to learn to process emotion, and so many people run from that, man. And I'm telling you, let me say this also to you women. You being a female is no excuse for not having emotional control. All right. Don't listen to the society that says, well, you know, women are emotional and men are logical. No, the the feminine energy is emotional. The masculine energy is logical. When we say feminine and masculine, that doesn't denote man or woman, because we all have feminine and masculine inside of us. Now we have different leanings and a predominant leaning towards certain sides. Absolutely. Like I am more logical than I am emotional. And many women who I know are more emotional than they are logical. But you have to have both working. You can't use that as an excuse. You really can't. Okay. Ultimately, remember, we came to this world to master the mind. You know, you master the mind through exploration. So to have anything that's going on inside of you and to revel in it because you don't have control of it is stupid. You know, and of course, yeah, you can't control everything, you know, but you're learning to. Just like you're not perfect, but you're perfecting. You're aspiring towards perfection by continually regenerating yourself within the perfecting of your movement of your soul. You see, you're learning to control and to master things by learning them, by dipping down into the abyss of them. You know, now when you die, will you be able to master your mind? Maybe not. You know, but you're moving towards that journey. You're moving towards what that looks like and what that is for you. You know, and like I said, a lot of times we fall back on that because the society tells us, you know, the society presents a lot of excuses that kill you. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been places with my youth and had to tighten them up for things, and people tell me, "Oh, come on, they're just children. Children do stuff like that. Maybe your children, not my children. We don't do that. Get the f out of my face." You know, no. People do that all the time. They could have a little pizza, something. You know, that's what children like. That's yeah, your little nasty children like that, drooling with eyes all glazed over. That's what your children like. My children are bright and alert and tough and beautiful and pretty. You know, that's how my children are, and smart and deep and spiritual. You know, they didn't get that by following the standard or the quota of what the society has handed to them. Nor did I. You see, so you have to take that level of ownership a lot of times. And once you take that level of ownership of your journey, then you can process the things that are in your path that you didn't put there, as opposed to egoically processing, and never really owning up. There's a difference, and there's a beautiful dance, there's a careful and beautiful dance between self-accountability and the realization of, of the passiveness of the life experience. So you're kind of going with the flow, but you're also choosing to go with the flow. So there's free will in there as well. You're choosing to go with the flow, but you're recognizing and you're sharpening and honing your ability to actually see the flow, to get in the flow. And for many, that's different. I see some talk about chakras. Let's see. Michelle said, I'm doing the chakra class. I know when I complete it, I can detach more easily, but I'm so dang detached. Well, let me warn you, Sister Michelle. I'm going to read your comment again. I'm doing the chakra class. I know when I complete it, I can detach more easily, but I'm so dang detached. Then we already know that you're not going to be able to detach more easily after you complete that class. We already know that. You done already hexed yourself. Who's I'm? Who are you talking about? Who's I'm? I'm so dang attached. You sure? You sure? Because if that I'm, if the real I'm decides no longer to be attached and abandons your body, then you're not so attached. Are you going to take your issues with you? Or is your soul going to shake that off and say, you can't come here with that? No, player. You can't come up here with that. Be careful. Be careful in what you say. And even putting a timer, when I complete this class, I'll be able to detach more. You could detach right now. Empowerment is in the moment. You can choose in this moment right now to be detached. That's a cop-out. I got to tell you honestly, that's a cop-out. Okay. Let's see. Sequoia says it's hard when those triggers happen and you got to just sit and let it take you down the rabbit hole. No, you don't. What is this stuff y'all talking, man? Where y'all getting this from? I need to spend more time in the chat room. Y'all coming up with some craziness, man. Where you getting this from? Your triggers happen and you just sit and you got to let it take you down the rabbit hole. You're talking like someone who doesn't have any emotional control. That's what that sounds like. Your triggers just happen and you got to just sit and let it take you down the rabbit hole. No. Your triggers happen and you process them. You step aside and you say, wait a minute, what is this? You have dreams sometimes. Hey, any of y'all have a dream? And, you have that dream when you're getting ready to go to the bathroom and urinate and you shake yourself in the dream because you know what you're getting ready to do in the bed. Oh, no, you don't. And you get up and you run to the bathroom. Because you recognize in that moment, even though it feels so real, I kind of know I'm dreaming. There's a part of me that knows it's not real. I'm dreaming. And I can stop this. I can shut this thing down, even though I know it's going to feel so good. It's going to feel so good when I urinate in this dream. But it's not going to feel so good when I urinate all over the person I'm sleeping next to. Well, I mean, I don't know what you're into, but, for some of you, you may not want to give the person a golden shower, and they may not want a golden shower, you see. So the idea there is that you have control, even in the midst of a dream where it feels so weird, so real, and your body and everything feels like, yeah, this is what we're getting ready to do. You can stop it. So those are cop-outs. I gotta wait, or it's taking me down this rabbit. No, y'all, those are cop-outs. Those are excuses y'all are making. Empowerment is in the moment. Right now in this moment. Empowerment is in the moment. You got some bad information? Yeah, probably. Or you might be the source. You might have just came up with that with yourself. Try to blame somebody else. So yeah, man, you know, so just give that some thought, everyone. I don't know if there's more questions in this room. I'll scan real quick before we head out. I know there's been a lot of conversation here, but we're going to talk about some more solutions, you know, in terms of how to defeat it. But first, I want you all to process what it is, so that way you can acknowledge it when you're seeing it and when you're feeling it. Because I'm gonna tell you something, and this is not a reflection on anything that was asked tonight. So just to be clear, um, it's just like, you know, I tell you, when you're dealing with spiritual entities, uh, you have to increase your knowledge of them, or it's advisable to increase your awareness and your knowledge of said entities, because in doing so you can have a more intelligent conversation. So in having a more intelligent conversation with an Orisha or an archangel, any type of astral energy, you're able to reach the pinnacle, and you can contact the crown of that energy, as opposed to contacting the foot or the hem of that energy's garment. You want to go right to the crown. You want to go right high to the good stuff. You see, well, the same thing. Remember, those entities are projections from your subconscious. Every last one of them. They're projections that you sent out. We covered that before. So it's the same thing when you're getting information like this and you're trying to skip over things. You know, you're trying not to process things. You're trying not to understand things, and you want to skip to, you know, well, just give me the solution. You see, in that sense, you're doing the same exact thing. Soak up this information I'm giving you, and soak it up the way I'm giving it to you. You see, get intelligent about that. So then what will happen as a result? You'll ask more intelligent questions. And we won't always have to go back to step one every time you ask a question. And again, please, please don't feel offended. You know, I'm not aiming it towards anything or anything that was said this evening. So I want to make that very clear. This is a consistent and common epidemic. I mean, this is PSA material. You know, I see it in readings all the time. That's why, for those of you gotten readings by me, you've heard me say things like, "Are you writing this down?" No, I'm just trying to process. Write write it down. You know, because it's like you don't want to learn what you're supposed to learn here, you know, or record it, which I usually suggest. Are you recording the reading? I don't know how to. Come on, man. Everybody's got a smartphone nowadays. They all record. Stop playing. You know, learn what you're being given, and then you'll see that some of the questions that you may have had will be answered and resolved by default. That's how this thing works. They'll be taken care of by default when you move in that way, man. You know, so try to soak up the information first. That's why I'm not going heavy on solution right now. We're gonna come back to that. Don't worry. But learn what it is that I'm saying. Yeah, Michelle, you said, Chief, you have a show on how a student should ask questions. You're absolutely right, Sister Michelle. And that show probably has about 100 views. You know, people skip over certain things. Y'all don't want to hear certain things. You know, when we start talking about the things that will actually make you grow and change, you know, becoming, if you're going to listen to this stuff, don't just listen to it because it's something to do, but actually really take it in and be respectful and responsible with the information you're taking in. When we start speaking on that level, everybody just kind of zones out. Not everybody, but a lot of people just kind of zone out, you know, and that's what keeps you locked in circles. And the problem is some of you don't realize this. I'm not sadistic. So do you think that I came to the planet to teach people who are too lazy to do the simplest of tasks? I mean, just really think of it. Just think about how long that's going to last. Just, you know, it's important to kind of, you know, it's just important to kind of look at. It's just like when you have a teacher teaching in a school and the students are bad as heck, and the administration won't do anything to repair the problems in the school. You think, and it's a talented teacher. You think they're not going to go work for a charter school somewhere or a private school somewhere that's going to pay them 3 times what you paying them? They may say, you know what, I'm just going to finish out the semester, just, for my own integrity. So just kind of keep that in mind a little bit. I'm not here to take you back to 101. This ain't spirit class. It's 101.8. We'll say that. But, I'm not taking you back to the beginning. These shows are very thorough. They're very, very thorough. And if you choose not to take any information as you should, that's on you. I'm sorry, but it's on you. I'm not here to hold your hand. I'm not interested in holding your hand. And as some of you have even noticed, if you ask me a real dumb question, I'm not even going to answer it. Like I told you in last show, I'm not Bobby Hemmett. Now, I ain't going to wear me out. Have me having strokes and stuff because trying to fight against the stupidness. Nah, I'm not doing that. This is something else. And I'm not profiting off of your ignorance. I'm not, somebody on YouTube who wants you to say a lot of dumb things so I can have, I could publicize it. Nah, I ain't in all that, man. So think about what you're asking sometimes, especially if and we'll get into that another time. If it's contrary to what I've taught you previously, and you're trying to get me to say something different for your own comfort. I see what you're doing. I'm telling you, it's gonna backfire on you. It's gonna backfire, and I know it's a lot of information, but just try to approach it from a more scholastic place, because sometimes you end up chasing off and losing your greatest teachers because you don't treat them right. Now Bobby isn't even teaching anymore like that. And you got a bunch of garbage out there. People who trying to be like him, trying to curse and talk about, and don't even know what the heck they're talking about. Chased away a lot of the good ones. Chased away Phil Valentine. He ain't even popping like that anymore. You see, you placed him with a bunch of pseudo intellectuals. I'm telling you, Shahrazad Ali said at one point, people have turned a deaf ear. I'm tired. Sister Soldier told me that personally. Remember Sister Soldier? I don't know if you remember. A lot of you guys remember her. I brought her out to the school to speak one time. She was so thankful. And I ran into her recently. She's like, yeah, these people, they ain't listening. So some of the good ones, some of the good ones that could really do some great things for them, man, you end up chasing them off with your laziness because it's disheartening. So just consider that. And again, I'm not saying this is not a rant. It's a teaching moment. And it will affect those who have the integrity to connect to the idea. And for the scum-sucking predators, the parasites who are listening, y'all don't hear nothing I'm saying. Y'all probably getting ready to click off. This doesn't even apply to you as far as you're concerned, because you're here to take what you're here to take. So for those who have ears to hear, just understand that, if you're not at least giving enough back to say, okay, I'm at least going to take the information serious, then you're going to end up chasing off good teachers, good people. And, then you wonder why they don't reincarnate back. They waiting for this generation to die out, this generation of suckers. Just get lost. And then once y'all die out and some better youth come up, then they may reincarnate or they may not. I'm telling you, trust me, that's how it goes. There's a lot of experiences. There's a lot of places I used to go and speak who would have me come yearly or whatever, Black History Month. I don't even go anymore. I don't even need to check. No, I'm good. Y'all ain't listening. I come here and talk about the same thing every year. I'm good. You start sounding like people who were close to Tupac and Biggie back in the days. You ever listen to their interviews? It's the same interview no matter where they go. So, you got any crazy stories about Biggie? You got any crazy stories about what was Pac like? The man been dead for over 20 years. Every interview is still the same. You see? So it just, it becomes regurgitative in that sense. So I'm saying, the new people ain't even coming through, man. So just give that some thought, and that's just a side note. It's a little PSA. Side note, take your learning serious, man. And sometimes that means that you have to sit down with a notepad and you have to write things down, and you have to, when a term comes, that you don't understand, like you have to look it up, look the word up. or look the idea up, and go a little bit deeper on it. Because I'm gonna tell you something, and you guys may not understand this, but trust me, I'm not lying to you. I wouldn't lie to you. A lot of times when you get one thing tight, it makes other things easier. And it may be something that seems completely unrelated, but you can find wisdom in anything that you attach yourself to, that you touch. I'm telling you, you can. If I do a show and I'm talking about gardening and you really, really listen to what I'm saying, it's going to relate to a whole bunch of other things. You see, if you listen to the shows, just listen to them. I use the same kind of examples for every subject. My examples are either fighting or sex. If you notice that. So you start to understand that one thing is related to another thing. You see? So if you pick a subject, that's why I tell you, when you come into consciousness, pick that thing that you really are attracted to. It could be drums, you heard some djembe drums, you really liked them, or it could be the dancing, or it could be the food, or whatever it is. It could be history. Maybe you're really into history, or you're really into the metaphysics. Everybody doesn't have to do the same thing. You find that thing that you really, really saying, okay, this is where I'm at. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm into. And I'm telling you, it's going to open up your awareness in other areas. I'm not lying to you. It will open up. Let's say if you just into food, right? Which some of you make too big of a deal of, by the way. But anyway, let's say food is your thing. Then really learn it in and out. Become a student of it. And I'm going to tell you, by sitting there staring at food, you'll learn things about the universe, or learning to be an alchemist in that way, learning about alchemy. Well, all of this that we're talking about is alchemy. It's all alchemy. You see, you find that thing that you really enjoy. It may be animals. You may want to get back to the earth and get back into that, Well, animals will teach you everything else, man, because we study chemistry. We're looking at all these different entities with animals on their head. Well, I already got that down pat. I've been studying animals. So now that's helped me understand the other thing. You see? Or you might get into the psychology. Well, if you learn in psychology, you're learning spirits, right? Because spirits create thoughts. You see? So that's what I'm telling you. Don't skip things because you want to design your own. Well, I just need some of it. I don't need all. You don't know what you need. Trust me. If you knew what you need, you wouldn't have to listen to me. You could just listen to yourself. You don't know what you need. All right. I know that doesn't feel good to hear. I know a lot of people don't like that. Like when I say something like that, you don't know what you need. Just like a child doesn't know what to eat on their plate. Like I said the other day, you leave it to a child, they're going to eat bread with ketchup on it. That's every single freaking meal. Bread with ketchup. I just want bread. Okay. They don't know what they want. So that's why we have elders and things like that to kind of put us up on that. Just like if I got into a new art today, let's let me pick something I don't know how to do. Now I know how to do that. All right, let's say advanced knot tying. I'm real good at tying knots, right? I was a Boy Scout for a little while before they kicked me out. So I had the books and stuff on knot. I was always really into knot tying, Y'all don't say nothing nasty, all right? I know what's coming next. And I know who it's coming from. Remember that timeout button. So let's say if I said, no, I really, really want to learn how to get into knot tying, right? There may be, and I go to learn it, someone will say, okay, well, the first thing you got to do to get into knot tying, you got to learn about the different kinds of rope. And I might say, come on, man, I ain't come here for all of that. I came here to learn how to tie a knot. And then you say, well, you got nylon, you got straw, you got silk, they might take me through the whole thing, right? Now I have to trust that this person has a process that will take me to where I'm supposed to go, as opposed to saying, well, because I'm not the one who invented the doggone knots. I don't have an authority there because I'm not the author of this art. I'm not the author of this science. So I have to trust somebody who's been given that authority. You see, so they might say, no, listen, I know you just want to come and tie some bow knots and tie your lady up. And I know that's what you're here for. But listen, you need to learn this. We're going to go down to the dock. And I'm gonna show you how I tie the boats up and tie up the sails on the boats and this and that and that and that and that and that and that. You know, so all of that may come, you know, and you have to understand that that's a part of it. You see, that's a part of it. So sometimes we don't respect the authority. And if we don't respect the authority, of course, we're not going to really respect the instruction. And no, the beast is not coming, Michelle and Joel. Y'all think this is entertainment. That's what I'm about to shut the show down. Yeah. Y'all only tune into the late night show because you know when it gets late, I start to act more like myself, my off-air personality. No, I'm keeping things restrained. You know, Pedro says, I had a dream when you was tying a rope. Ropes represent Obatala. Just so you know, they represent Obatala and omnipresence because they represent the attachment to all things. You know, so it's like that Lakaye aspect. The Lakaye is that which influences the entire planet. But yeah, in any sense. So, you know, it's bowing down and showing that respect to that authority in certain areas like that, you know, that's very important, you know, in that sense. That's very important. So just kind of keep that in mind, you know, just kind of keep that in mind as you're listening and you're taking things in, that there's a process that the authorities of certain information are going to put you through, and it may not feel relevant to you, but you don't know. That's the whole point, you know, you don't know, so you have to go through it. All right, so I'm gonna scan real quick for questions, then I'm gonna close out. If anyone has a question, just throw it up there real quick. All right, about what we're talking about. Just give me a second. A lot of people in the chat room tonight too. I see y'all like the nighttime sessions, and like I said, I know y'all think because I'm a, you know, I was gonna say let my locks down. I keep forgetting I cut my locks off. I'm thinking, you know, I'm gonna unbutton my top button and loosen up. Nah, I don't think y'all realize how controlled I am. I think when I say certain things like because I'm losing control. I'm not like y'all. Y'all don't have emotional control. I don't have the issues that y'all have. I'm sorry. I got other issues, but that's not one of my issues. I have a lot of discipline and restraint. You haven't even noticed I've never even responded to spirit driven. I just act like I ignore all that stuff. That takes restraint. You know, when somebody's throwing a twat at you, you know, you got to hold yourself back as a leader. You know, let's see. Okay. I don't see any question marks. Now she ain't gonna like why she said, let me scroll to the bottom. She's gonna say something slick or that. I should end the show before she could say, so she could respond. But yeah, so yeah, man, that's really where we're at with it, man. And you know, we'll get into some more solutions, you know, in terms of it. But I really want you just to process the symptoms more than anything. You know, I want you to be able to process the symptoms, because honestly, if you can really process the symptoms, I'm gonna keep it real with you. You probably can process the solution, because all you have to do is work backwards. You know, if you can really, that's why we grasping the root. You know, if you can deal with the root and you can deal with the root causes of it, then you can fix it. It's just no different than medicine. You know, it's no different than anything like that. You know, when you are dealing with true healing, you got to get to the source of it. You know, before you even start talking about the solution, because once you get to the source, a lot of times the solution is not that difficult. You know, it's not that difficult to deal with. You know, so you know, just consider that for a moment. You know, the things that I'm teaching and stuff like that. I know we're always rushing to the finish line, and we feel like everyone feels like they deserve an answer, and they deserve a solution immediately. You know, but you work for your doggone solution. I didn't gave you the root. And 9 times, I'm gonna say 10 times out of 10, when I'm teaching, I already gave you I already answered the questions that you're asking, but you're not processing the information. So yeah, again, post-traumatic stress disorder creates that, because if you're stuck in that fight or flight, I keep saying fight or flight response, you're not going to think about what needs to be said. You're not going to really be able to process because that's the whole point. When your adrenaline is pumping, your thought process are limited, so that way you can act, so you don't have that hesitation of thought. Well, that's what's happening now. Certain information comes up, it triggers. I may say something like, a lot of us are selfish. The word selfish itself could be a trigger to you. Just the word. You calling me selfish? What? I wasn't even talking to you. What are you talking about? I had that happen to me the other day. Ooh, oh man, I wish I could remember the conversation. It wasn't even a real conversation. I said something about, oh, that's what it was. Sister was saying to me something about, what women provide, and just thing about women. And she said she was inferring that basically she could kind of hold me down as something like that, or don't you have, basically like she could do something for me that someone else couldn't. Let's keep it that way. And I said, well, for certain kinds of men, we recognize, and this is what I said. I want to show you what came out of that. I said, certain kind of men, we recognize that because of our walk and what we came to the planet to do, that we never actually find our match. Our match doesn't really exist. That's the blessing and the curse. You're far ahead of the herd, or far ahead of the pack, and you're able to help the pack and lead the pack, even if need be. But you finding someone who can run as fast as you can and keep up with you, it doesn't really happen. So you learn to enjoy the smaller pleasures, and she was saying, so I said, so I don't really expect full reciprocity. I don't expect a woman to come as strong as I am, or a woman to bring as much into my life as I bring into her life. That's just a part of my walk. And then she said, so you saying it's got to be a two-way street. You just can't expect her to give you everything. You don't give her anything. You see that? Now that response made no sense. None whatsoever. Based on what I was saying. So we have poor listening skills there. And then what also happens is this. Let's say if this was a woman I was planning on doing something intimately with, and that was said, and now she said, and now we ain't gonna do nothing, right? Let's just say if it goes there. So now there's traumatization. Okay. So now what happens is, based on that conversation that was had, I now say, okay, if I start sharing about myself, or sharing where I am, or where I am mentally, or where I am emotionally, it's going to shut down my opportunities for pleasure, or it's going to shut down my opportunities for intimacy, or for connection. Now, ultimately, there was a trigger there when I said, well, yeah, I kind of know that I don't expect anyone to really be able to do everything that I can do. It's okay. It's cool though. There was a trigger in there somewhere for her, where she was recalling some of her history that had nothing to do with what I was saying, So a lot of times, if we don't know how to process it, because that was insane, what she said, it had nothing to do with what I was talking about. So it would be very difficult for me to actually process that, because it had nothing. Oh, spirit just crossed in front of me. Because I'm like, it's at night where I'm at right now. I'm saying, all the windows are covered. I saw a light go by, like a car. I said, how the car light get this close? It was a spirit that just went by. But so I may not be able to process what was said, right? Because it didn't make any sense. So now that creates that dissonance inside. The dissonance then later creates, that feeling of trauma in a sense. So sometimes it's very small things. You'd be surprised, where people may say something illogically, and then you're unable to have a conversation with them. Sometimes that happens. Somebody will say something crazy. You say, no, wait a minute, I mean this. And they don't give you an opportunity to say what it is that you're trying to say. They shut everything down. So now you couldn't really process it if you're not able to say, okay, that person is in this place, that person is this, that person is that. If you're not able to do that, then you still have that trauma of that wayward conversation, if you want to call it there. You still have that still present. Okay. So it comes in so many different forms. Honestly, I have to tell you, it comes in so many different forms that it's really worth looking at it. I didn't do this show because it's a popular subject, or it's something nice to talk about at night. I did the segment because I see a lot of people are dealing with it. What is this going on in the chat room? Yo, y'all need to stop riffing with each other. All right. Calm that down, please. All right. Yeah, spirit driven. You see what you're doing? You see all the turmoil you whipping up. Y'all gotta chill though. Spirit driven. Get on your situational awareness, and the rest of y'all bring that down. All right, because we got a couple of Oya women in the room, and now they going at each other. Relax, okay? Relax. But that's your fault, spirit driven. Let me just put it out there, because yeah, you are out of pocket. All right, so because you saying all that little sex talk and all that stuff in the chat room, it's actually offending people who are trying to learn. Yeah, you did do something. I didn't do anything, Chief. Yeah, you absolutely did. You're causing chaos. You're causing, there's a certain movement. I was gonna ignore it, by the way. But then that would be irresponsible of me to ignore that. Yeah, that's your fault, spirit driven. The best thing you could do is apologize for being so out of pocket. But I don't think right now you would give us a sincere apology. But yeah, nah, don't do that, man. They're in there learning. Everybody's learning. You doing your little sex jokes. There's got to be a ratio to it. Throw 1 or 2 sex jokes in there and then relax. Don't forget that you're doing all that joking about someone that people respect and see a certain way. So when you come in responding like that, it's going to create a little bit of attention and the space, because I don't joke with anyone like that. And also there are women that I deal with who are part of Anu who may also take exception. Now, just keep in mind that, some people may take that a certain way, but yeah, that's just you being out of pocket. Stop trying to come in and make it make it your spirit, and don't use this as an opportunity to say, I'm out of here. Don't be a sucker about it. Don't be acting like a little faggot. All right. And I use that word specifically, just so you know, if anybody is offended, I call women faggots. Okay. I pretty much never call men faggots. But my youth laugh about that. You only call women faggots and punks. Don't be acting like no little faggot punk. You do something wrong, apologize and keep it pushing. All right. But yeah, man, people here to learn. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm over here talking about the scholarship, and you over in left field. Yeah. Okay. I'm never scared. All right. Stop talking so much, spirit driven. All right. You taking that I'm a warrior thing too far. Relax. Okay. I don't like that. Calm down. That's one of the problems sometimes. You sisters got to know when to shut up. When you do something that's wrong and you're called out on it, apologize sincerely, put your head down and shut the F up. Don't come back with all of that. I ain't scared. No, you are scared. Shut the F up. That's the problem. All right. So let me just put that out there. And that's for all of y'all, because I've been dealing with that a lot with some of y'all lately. You talk too effing much. Don't talk to me so much. I don't even keep women around me to talk that much. The women who I'm even intimate with in my life, we don't talk that much. For me, women are for pleasure. So let me make that real clear to you. So all that tough, I'm a warrior. You ain't no real warrior, because if I smack the hell out of your ass or go unconscious. So you ain't no warrior. Just knock it off. Knock it off. All right. Be a woman. Be soft. Now, and I know I probably lost me some listeners, but I don't care. Yeah, I know it's interesting and all that. See, that's a problem. I might have to mute you. You might have to be put on timeout. Because you know, and that's you disrupting the flows. Good show, everybody's learning, and then here comes the devil. Don't be a devil. Don't choose to be that in this moment. Don't choose to be a devil. That's the problem. Talk too goddamn much. It's a problem with a lot of sisters, man. And you know, I know y'all think it's the end of the show, so I'm getting ready to go off, but I'm not. I'm just being honest and truthful with you, man. Being honest and truthful. You know, that's the arrogance right there. Like you did something. You took everybody in a certain direction, which you shouldn't have been doing anyway. You're growing behind women. You over here cracking on these sex jokes. Say that put that in my DM. If you want to have that little, you know, that little banter or whatever. But, you know, come on, people saying, all right, listen, man, we here trying to learn. You still going. Then when you check, you still talking. Because you think in your mind, you've deluded yourself to think that you some type of warrior. You ain't no warrior. You're a freaking woman. All right. A lot of you sisters need to come off that warrior BS, man. That comes from them social media memes. I'm a warrior. Just because you're an asshole doesn't mean that you're a warrior. Just because you can't get along with anybody doesn't mean you're a warrior. Okay, just because you were so intolerable that some man had to whip your ass back in the days and you survived the ass whooping doesn't make you a warrior. Okay, it doesn't make you that. Some of you are just insufferable. And I'm not talking about you spirit driven, but I'm saying there's an overall vibe that I'm seeing even in the conscious collective. Sisters taking pictures, holding guns and bow and arrows. Get the hell out of here with that, man. Y'all watching too much what is that, Final Fantasy? Y'all watching too much of that, man, and too much of these movies where these little skinny little white girls is coming out kicking behind. That's not happening in real life, man. Relax with all that. Okay? Learn to be cool, man. You get checked. Put your head down, man. All right, you got that. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have did that. Put your head down. Relax. You know, ain't nobody gonna try to gorilla you up in this space. You know, you safe. All those declaration of fake warriorhood, man, it gets tired. It gets exhausting after a while. And we can't really get anywhere if, you know, we can never really check one another. You do something, okay, all right, boom, boom, boom. How are we gonna move? How are we gonna grow like that? If you're unteachable, you see? And there's nothing attractive about that. And let me tell you something. No man wants to lay in a bed with a warrior unless he likes men. You could do all the references you want because they always say, what about Hafsat Shut? What about Nzinga? Half of y'all you never even studied their chronicles to even, you know, use it out of convenience, man. So, you know, just keep that in mind, man. Keep everything cool. Keep everything cool. You know what I mean? And there's a certain way that we have to interact as men and women. You know, I'm gonna tell you that, or even as elders. I've seen too many incidents, even on this segment, you know, where something was happening, and because I know all of you guys, and someone who was older said, okay, all right, stop. And the person keeps going. What's African about that? Nothing. You know, so you got to be careful with some of that stuff. That's the only reason why I'm commenting. I wasn't going to say anything. I saw the banter starting back and forth, and I was going to not say anything about it. But then that I wouldn't be responsible, and I wouldn't be that would be inappropriate of me as an elder and as a man in this space to not bring order when there's disorder going on. Okay. And we don't do that. We don't need to do that. That's not us. We have love for one another. Okay. So if somebody says, okay, you're a little off right now.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
Blog Talk's gone.
Goodbye.
All right, sugar, she done hung up on me. Go ahead. Go on with your funky ass. But, you know, if that happens, you know, it's okay for us to say, hey, you know, you're out of pocket right now. You know, you're a little turned up right now. Relax, chill. You know, we got to have that kind of love for each other. You know, we got to have that, man. you know, and that's what allows the women to be soft again, man. You got to be able to tell them, like, listen, man, you know, because we live in this is what I'm talking about, the post-traumatic stress disorder. We live in an insane society where, and I've said this before, a man my size, you know, you can have a 6'1", almost 300-pound man and a 5 foot or 5'5" tall woman, 125 pounds, can stand in his face beefing and going off. And think about the cognitive dissonance that sets in your mind when that happens. When you know you could just grab that individual by the neck and rip their head off their shoulders. But because you live in a society that says that you're not allowed to do that, you have to suppress all of those things inside of you. And this other little chihuahua, it's like a chihuahua trying to go at a Rottweiler. The chihuahua actually thinks that it's doing something. It doesn't, like, I remember having that conversation with a sister once, and she was talking about how her parents used to go, they used to fight, and it would get physical. Now, her mother was known for how petite she was. She was a petite little woman. And her father was like 6'4", big old, kept his gun on him at all times. Even when he didn't have his shirt on, he used to always sit in his leather chair with his gun straps on, you know, his holster on. Just cause he wasn't a cop, he actually owned a body shop, but that's just what he did, right? And I had to say to her one day, and she was like, yeah, and mother used to hold her own. And I was like, yo, don't you realize that entire time he was just trying to figure out how not to hurt her? Like, it didn't even click. You know, until I said that, I said, think about that, because she used to like to wrestle with me. Because, of course, she got that from her mother. But the difference with me is that I used to hurt her back. Because don't play them games with me. You don't come by me, stand by me, and try to flip me over, and it stopped. Because she was a tall sister, like her father. You know, so she would try to grab me or something like that. I'd take her arm and twist it behind her back. You know, be like, no, don't do that with me. Because my hit or my grab is not the same. I could just grab your wrist and hurt you. Don't play that game with me, because I'm here to protect you, not to fight you. So don't create that between us now with that physical competition. It's not healthy, because then what happens if things really get lit, you know, or you really want, you know, you want something from me that I'm not doing, or you want me to respond a certain way. What are you going to do? You're going to hit me, because you already have it in your mind that that's acceptable. And I'm going to hit you back. You put your hands on me, I'm going to put my hands on you. Okay, so let's not even do that. Let's not even play that game, you know? So that's what I'm saying, even with you guys, man. You know, chill with that stuff, man. Relax with it, man. You know? There's a place for us brothers. There's a place for the sisters, man. We have to learn our place. You can't build a society without being able to do that. Trust me, you cannot build a society or a civilization without people knowing the role that they serve in it, man. You know, you can't establish any type of unity without establishing that measure of harmony. You can't establish harmony without everyone knowing their unique and special note. Okay. Seeking wisdom, now you picking on her. She's been quiet. Have you noticed since I said, okay, don't say anything, she stopped talking? She's good. Now seeking wisdom says, place her on timeout, let God arise and the enemies be scattered. Don't come in here quoting the Bible, seeking wisdom. Let God arise and my enemies be scattered. I know what you're quoting, all right? If anything, you should be congratulating the sister, because she is not saying anything. She got quiet. She did what she was supposed to do. See, come on now. Come on now. Don't let the Willie Lynchism get the best of you guys. We ain't got no divide and conquer. I only stepped in to say something because my job is to keep order. That's what I'm here for, to maintain order in the midst of chaos, but not to pick on anybody. Because she probably could come back and curse all of y'all out and not think nothing about it, because she seems to be just that wild. You better leave that woman alone. Don't stand behind Chief's back and throw rocks, because I'll move to the side, let her tear your ass up. All right. So with that said, we're going to close out. We're going to close out because I said the word ASS too many times. So I've reached my quota. I've reached my quota of profanity for the evening, because you guys know I don't really do that too much. So I don't reach my quota. All right. So yeah, man, love each other up, man. Be lovely towards one another, man. Yeah, you're going to have disagreements. That's all good, man. But, you know, just understand that I might come with the hammer and put the kibosh on all of that stuff, man. You know, be cool. And, you know, Spirit Driven knows what to do now. And the rest of y'all know too. You know, because sometimes y'all are guilty of the same thing, you know? And that's on the men too, man. Keep order. Keep order. Shouldn't even got that far. Keep order. Grow up here. Okay, Spirit Driven. All right, we got it. You apologize once again. All right. We cool. You know, we cool. But, you know, you're not really saying who you're apologizing to, by the way. So I don't know how sincere it is, but I'll let y'all work on that off air. Y'all can handle that. Yeah, of course it's all love, Brother Joel. Yeah, man, it's all love. If it wasn't love, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have got some popcorn and watched the show. You know, it's all love, man. You know, we have to, when I say our new family, you gotta say, I mean that joint. Now, some of my family is crackheads and rapists. But hey, they still family, man. Come on. They good for something, for carrying some ice or something at the bar. Come on, we're gonna go pick up some ice, some bags of ice. Don't steal nothing. You know. So, you know, everybody brings something, man. But don't forget this part, man. We're all here to heal. So let me just put this out there. Because I know the bulk of you, you know, who listen to the shows and all that, y'all are all effed up in different ways. Don't forget, I know your stories. I know your testimonies. All of y'all are effed up in one way or another. Don't forget that. Baba Lao, father of secrets. I keep secrets. All right. So, you know, never try to pull piety. Never try to pull self-righteousness. And I'm not talking to anyone. I'm just, you know, giving a general, you know, some general guidance, you know. You came here not because you got it all together. Because if you had it all together, why would you be listening to me 11 o'clock at night on a Wednesday? You came here because you recognize I need some help. You know, my perspective is off. That's for all of you. None of you are at 0 point and you listen to enlightenment and transformation because you want to just kick it up to the next level. That's what we talked about in this show. We're all products of post-traumatic slave syndrome, and we're all products. Stop it, Spirit Driven. Relax. And we're all products of post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? So that means none of us are starting at 0. We're starting below 0. Okay? And we're trying to get up to some level ground so then we can start making some civil and some civil lives for ourselves, man. So just keep that in mind, man. We all have our challenges. I sit back and I watch y'all and I speak to y'all and I'm clear on your challenges, man. Some of you, and some of you just even by what sometimes you just, the little things you put in the chat room, I can see what your problems are, you know? So, you know, and seeking wisdom, no, we did not allow the negative energy to derail progression. We didn't do that. You know, your tone doesn't sound very loving, seeking wisdom. And we didn't derail the progression because this is information that y'all all need. You think I'm not easily distracted? Do you really think I'm not easily? If I was that easily distracted, I would not have gotten this far. I've been doing this for 27 years now, and doing it effectively for 27 years. You can't last in this for 27 years without having to go back to the plantation if you're that easily distracted, or if you're egotistical and you got to prove a point. It's not gonna work. You're not gonna be able to do it. Trust me. You know, you got to be focused in order to last that long. I've been doing this longer than some of y'all even been alive. Okay, so just keep that in mind, man. You know, everything that's said needs to be said. All right. Okay, we're gonna close out because I think y'all had enough. And this is Wednesday, the day of confusion. Don't forget that in our Yoruba, Wednesday is the day of confusion. So yeah, man, everything has rhyme and reason, man. There's a reason for everything. And this is an opportunity for you to do right. not for you to sink lower into the pits of your own misery, but an opportunity for you to say, okay, well, you know what? Maybe we need to move a little bit differently. Maybe we need to do it like this, or, this is how we strengthen as a community, because we have to engage. And if no one was there, which you should be thanking the sister, no one was there to bring up the corruptive aspects of us, we wouldn't have that to engage, because it is between the corruption and the purity that the truth arises out of the center. Because here's the truth of it. Sisters always making these little sex jokes and stuff, right? Well, how many of you sisters are so arrogant and so much on your high horse that you pretend like you sitting there being practicing abstinence for 4 or 5 years is natural and normal? Because you're too arrogant and too cocky now to let a brother know that, hey, I want you to come scratch this itch. There's a balance between the two, right? We got a lot of single sisters here who need men. And we even have some men, as brother Byron and I was speaking about this recently, who are single and I knew, and too afraid to let sisters know I'm looking for a mate. You see? Now, so you have a balance here. You have a sister's like, listen, man, Chief, you could come knock the lining out this thing if you need to. No, I'm joking. She didn't say that. But I'm just saying. So out of the two, out of what we feel repulses us and angers us, and what we feel makes us honorable, between the two of those lies the truth. Because some of you need to get down off your high horse and let brothers know, listen, I've been coming home to children and cats for the past 7 years, and I need a covering. I need a man in my life. So there's a healthy balance. It gives you something to think about this evening. It gives you something to think about going forward. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Don't get into that condemn space. You could judge, I'm judging all of y'all, but don't condemn, because there might be opportunities there for you to really examine some things. And don't forget, I know all of y'all. Mostly, a lot of y'all in the chat room I don't know, because we get so many new listeners now, but a good portion, I'd say at least 60% of, I'm scanning around, 60% of the chat room, I know you, I know your story. A lot of you are single and want mates and talk to me about it all the time. And then you have all these brothers and these sisters right here who are in a system that you agree with and that you're riding with. Some of them are even open to polygyny, will even invite you into their family. You don't speak up and say anything. Whenever I do those shows, and I've done it, I don't even do it anymore. I stopped. Anybody who's interested in the mate, let me know. Out of all the time that I've done that, how many responses I've gotten? Out of all the times I've done those shows, 1. And that sister currently is out of her new, because I told her, once you get a man, you got to leave. And that was only because of her proximity to me. And I said, that's going to cause problems. And I said, once you go, once you get with him, you're going to go under him. I don't want you around me anymore, because you can't be serving my mission while you're with another brother. And she's gone. A lot of y'all know her. I'm not going to say her name, but so that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Some of you have to learn to be a little bit more vocal and look at certain things as an opportunity to see the energy that's there. It may not come out in a way that you appreciate or that you enjoy, but it's valuable all the same. Yeah, Gloria asked, who when I knew is single, LOL. You see how people do when they just say who when I knew is single. You can put the LOL. People think LOL is the neutralizer. You can say anything you want as long as you put LOL at the end of it. Just say who's single and I knew. What man wants to take me and my baggage on? That's what y'all sisters need to put in the group. Which men here are willing to take me and my crazy unfinished, because I'm only on lesson 4 in the I Knew spiritual training. So what man is willing to take me on with all those problems? Yeah, that's a good point, Bamboo. Upload a real picture of yourself, spirit driven, so the brothers here can catch the vibes. Right, of course. And you can't handle me. See the nonsense. Right, exactly. All right, so we're gonna close out, but I think you all, I think you all get the point in what I'm saying. Um, use those opportunities, to spring forward into something a little bit better. And before everything that comes forth is for a reason. Even like Sister Gloria said earlier, can you just bury your trauma? Can you just bury it? There's some things that happened in my childhood that I don't remember, right? Give you an example. She put that in the chat room earlier. Did anyone reach out to her? Or is it just chat room talk? This is one of those shows where I scanned the chat room when I was talking. A lot of stuff came out. People were like, yeah, I got stuff from my childhood, this and that, molestation. I think I saw something like molestation, I think. If I'm making that up, please excuse me. But my eyes were scanning. I could have sworn I saw the word molestation or molest, one of them. How many people reached out and said, hey, you need somebody to talk to? Or does it end when I hit end on the show? Are we one another's keepers? So now you and Joel, you going that spirit driven. Said spirit driven, I made it, sis. Don't flatter yourself, but it's all love. That was for the brothers here. Right. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Golly. Spirit driven, it's time for you to close your mouth, stop talking. Now you say they should be man enough to ask for themselves. See, now you need to be quiet because you're saying stupid things. Okay, so don't talk. Don't say anything else. Women are always trying to tell men what they should be doing. You don't know what the hell a man is unless you are a man, because you won't show a picture of yourself. Maybe you are a man, but don't talk about someone should be man enough to do something. I told you stop talking. That better be a delay that came in. And because I don't know why it was written in all caps. You about to get blocked. Not just muted, blocked. See, I don't play that stuff, man. Like, I know a lot of you brothers going back and forth with sisters and stuff like that. I don't do that, man. I recognize my authority, and I'm gonna tell you just like this. I'm gonna lose some callers on this one, but I don't give it nothing. I recognize my supremacy. So don't come in here trying to, rile SHIT up and stuff. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because then when y'all get put in y'all place, then y'all want to act like women all of a sudden. You come in here with all that nastiness when somebody say, wait a minute, boom, 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 boom. Then you play the victim role. So just stop. Okay, delay, but I'm still telling you, don't say anything else. See, that's the problem. Tareen, you don't need to be there for Sequoia. Sequoia says she's so confused. Sequoia has a husband. His name is Randy. Randy will be there for Sequoia. All right? And her sisters, like she talks to on a Monday night call. Don't worry about Sequoia. She'll be all right. She got a man that she goes to every night. Matter of fact, she ain't got no reason to even be complaining. Most of the women on this chat right here don't even got no man. She got a husband and children. Don't y'all feel sorry for Sequoia. She's wealthy. Her husband will take care of her. Yo, y'all got to learn these protocols, man. And don't worry. I know a lot of you don't know, man. It's new to you. But you got to learn these protocols, and that's what those PSAs and things about that I'm doing. And I'm also been working on this little pamphlet. I need to just sit down one day and just finish it. But yeah, we got to learn how to talk to each other, man, and how to deal with each other, because we got to learn how to really respect the women and how the women need to really respect the men. You know what I mean? We don't see each other. Respect is we're not seeing each other. So we talking to each other all kind of funny ways, and it's messing us up, it's messing them up. We got to stop that stuff, man. Trust me on this one. I'm not lying to you. Trust me on this. You don't have to apologize to me, Brother Tareem. You were being helpful. You're a good brother. You're one of the good ones, man. I'm just saying, really, I was talking to Sequoia, but no, it's not. Don't worry. It's not. Don't even worry about it, Brother Tareem. The things that I'm saying, like I said, don't excuse my thoroughness for agitation. Please, y'all, don't do that. You know, when I'm telling you something, don't think I'm saying it because I'm frustrated, or it's not that. I'm saying it because I want y'all to be able to get and do better. And some of the things that you're stuck at and you can't do, or that you're having troubles with, is because you don't understand. You're violating the organism. You're violating the body. Remember, the universe is a body. The human consciousness is a body, and you're violating the body by not seeing each other properly. The heart is not communicating properly with the stomach. The left arm is not communicating properly with the right arm. So when I come in and I say, wait a minute, you're causing confusion in the way that you're communicating with one another. You know, when I'm saying something like that, then you might look at it like, oh, wow, you know, he's upset. Trust me, this stuff doesn't upset me, man. You know, if I told y'all some of my stories that I've been, you would say, okay, yeah, this wouldn't be the thing that upsets him. Again, don't confuse my ability to articulate things down to a very small level for me being frustrated. I'm not articulating at that level because I'm mad. I'm articulating at that level is because I care about you. That's why I'm still on air at 11:50, almost midnight, because I care about you. Okay, so I want you to be clear on that, man. I'm articulating, I'm being thorough. We have to deal with each other a certain way. I don't want to see these sisters acting tough. You know why? They only acting tough because they don't see us. You know, sister don't never need to try to challenge anybody or challenge me, anything like that, because you can't challenge me. You can't win. So just stop, do the sister thing. You see, and that's for me. I can't speak for every brother on the line or whatever like that, but you know, I'm just saying we gotta get with each other the right way. And when I say get, I don't mean intimately per se, but even just how I speak to Sequoia. You know, sometimes I'll say, hey, Iya, Michelle, Iya. Why do I call them Iya? Are they Iya Nifas? They ain't even initiated. Are they initiated priestesses? No, they're mothers. So every time I speak to them from the perspective of respecting their motherhood, which distinguishes them from me right off the bat. So immediately I recognize that I'm talking to something other than myself. I'm not talking to another guy. I can't call a guy Iya. You see, when I get on the phone with Michelle, whatever, hey, Iya, peace. And most of the time I'm saying, hey, anytime, hey, say peace to my brother for me. I'm talking about their husbands. Acknowledging and respecting that. Now it's small things. I'm telling you, you guys may look at it like, you don't need to, you know, you don't need to do all that. I got sister friends, you know, but no, I'm telling you, these are the things that start to reinvigorate and reignite the African hood inside of you. So that spirit starts to stand up in you. Again, this is how you look at your people and you see the village. They may not look like the village. They may just look like a bunch of ragtag man of misfits. But you have to see the village, you see? And you may even be talking, I'm not talking about the two sisters. I'm giving an example. You may be talking to sisters who are struggling with their motherhood. But you don't speak to them where they are. See, that's what spiritual authority brings. My spiritual authority, I speak into what will be. Peace, Iya. Peace, Baba. You see, I spoke to brother Randy, sister Sequoia's husband. I said, "Hey, peace, Baba." I called him man. That boy, boy. That man's younger than me, Baba. Because I'm looking at where you're going. You see, that's how we have to deal with each other, man. I'm telling you, don't get wrapped up in your attachments of what your brain reality has produced, because what has been produced, what you're seeing in each other right now, is a product of the disorder. So don't speak to that. Speak through that nonsense. You see, speak to what will be. You have to take on that Orumila mindset, that Ileri Ipin, the witness to all creation, the witness to destiny. That's why we call him Ileri Ipin. You know, we have to say, no, I've witnessed in another place. I've witnessed you in your glorified form. I've witnessed you redeemed, and I'm going to speak to you from your redeemed form, not from the little meanderings you do now, because this is not even you. Somebody implanted those sicknesses in you. You're going to be accountable for it. I'm going to get in your ass when I need to. But no, I'm going to speak to you where you're going. That's when you're looking and dealing with someone like the Creator does. I'm telling you. Why do you think when the spirits talk to you, they never use your name? They don't need to say your name, because whatever your name is tied to your current identity. You don't know what your name. You think when I was a little boy, I knew my name was gonna be. People was gonna be calling me Chief. Well, I kind of did know that. That's a bad one. But I'm just saying, you get where I'm going with this. So that's the love we gotta have for each other, man. When we look beyond what the world has created, the stone encasement, look beyond it. Go a little bit forward. Go a little bit forward. I'm telling you, and speak that into existence, man. I'm telling you, you will love yourself much more as a result. You know, because if you're loving your brother or you're loving your sister, you're loving yourself. There's no separation. Trust me on that one. You're loving yourself. So just, just roll with that. Just roll with that, man. Just take everything I said, really think about it. You know, you can play it while you're sleeping tonight. Just think about what I'm saying to you. That's why sometimes and thank you, Seeking Wisdom. I know that it's really delayed. But yeah, I know it seems like, again, it's a beat down in a sense of things that I'm saying to you, but I'm not beating you down with it. I'm giving you the keys. These are the keys to open up these doors so that you can process these experiences in your life. A lot of it starts with changing your posturing. Change your posturing. How you're relating to one another is going to determine even how you relate to yourself, because it's that interconnectedness. All right. So yeah, we didn't end on a sour note. We didn't get distracted. None of that stuff like that. We got feedback. That sister gave us some good feedback. Okay. And you got to think about it like this. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I should have put my phone on mute. But yeah, so I'm gonna head out. All right. I will be back Thursday. I'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. All right. I'm gonna speak about some of the solutions for what we spoke about this evening. And then of course, we have a new subject that we'll be talking about tomorrow as well. All right. So I look forward to building with you all. I know this might have been a heavy show because we went a lot of places. But we living in some heavy times. The little kitty information isn't going to cut it all the time. All right. So, all right. This is Chief Yuya signing out, and peace and power to all of you. I respect, and Oshun, all of you, man. Trust me. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here almost at midnight. You see how this phone goes off. I got things to do, even this late at night. My phone still rings. All right. My work day doesn't end at 10 or whatever. I'm still on the grind. All right. So let me get back to work. All right. And you all enjoy your rest this evening. All right. Enjoy your rest and think about what I said. All right. I should see some people booed up in the next couple of days. All right. Peace and power to you all.